I've worked as a 911 dispatcher for 8 years now. Most nights are the same. Drunk drivers, domestic disputes, loud neighbors. You get used to the rhythm of panic. The way people's voices sound when their world cracks open. You learn to stay calm, even when your heart starts racing. It's part of the job. But some calls don't leave. Some stick to you like smoke. You can move on, live your life, pretend it's behind you. But then one night, you'll be driving home and think you hear that same voice again. A child's voice. Soft, crying through static. It started on a Thursday. Heavy rain outside. Steady thunder in the distance. The call center was quiet. That eerie quiet when the storm dampens everything. We were down to 2 operators at shift. Me and Carla, a rookie who was still nervous about every little thing. I was drinking cold coffee, half asleep, when line 12 lit up. No location data. Just a landline ping. Somewhere on the west side of town. 911, what's your emergency? I said, like I've said 1,000 times before. At first, nothing. Just a low hiss. I thought maybe it was interference. But then I heard breathing. Quick, shallow breaths, like someone trying not to make noise. Hello? I asked again. Can you hear me? A small voice came through. A boy's voice. He couldn't have been older than 8 or 9. And my name's Eli, he said. There's someone outside. I straightened up in my chair. The tone in his voice, it wasn't panic. It was something quieter. Like he'd been scared for a long time already. Okay, Eli, I said gently. Can you tell me where you are? There was rustling. I heard rain on glass. The faint hum of a TV somewhere in the background. He whispered, I don't know. I'm at home. My mom's not here. I was supposed to be in bed. All right, that's okay. Can you look around and tell me your address? Maybe a number on the house, or the street name? He went silent for a moment. I could hear him moving, the sound of small feet on carpet, then tapping, like fingers against a window pane. Eli, what's that sound? He whispered, he's knocking. The hair on my arm stood up. Someone's knocking on the window? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yeah. Okay, I want you to move away from the window, Eli. Go to a room where you can lock the door. Can you do that for me? A pause. Then the sound of him running. A door creaked. The click of a lock. I'm in my room, he said, but he keeps walking around. I started typing, flagging the call to local patrol. Eli, can you see him? No, he whispered, but he keeps whispering my name. I froze for a second. That wasn't the kind of detail you forget. Eli, are you sure you're alone in the house? I was watching TV, he said. Then I heard tapping. I thought it was Mom coming home, but the lights were off outside. He just started walking around the house. Static filled the line again. I could barely hear him. Can you tell me what he looks like? More silence. Then, in a trembling whisper, he's wearing my dad's coat. That's when I felt my throat tighten. My fingers kept moving on instinct, updating the call log, trying to get a location trace. But the signal wouldn't stabilize. Line 12 flickered like it was alive. Okay, Eli. Help is on the way, all right? Just stay on the line with me. Don't make any noise. He didn't answer. Only the static and that soft sound. Tapping on glass again. Then a whisper, not from him this time. It came through the line, faint, distorted, like a recording played backward. It almost sounded like my own voice. I said, Eli, who's there with you? Nothing. Then, he's at the door now. I heard a slow creak, the sound of a door opening, then a sharp, high-pitched tone, like feedback. Eli? Static swallowed the line. And then it went dead. Carla looked up from her desk when she heard me slam the receiver down. What happened? She asked. Lost the line, I said. My heart was pounding, so loud it drowned out the rain. Get me patrol dispatch for West Sector. Right now. We relayed the call details. What little we had. No clear address. No confirmed location. Just a rough grid of where the call might have come from. 2 units responded. They combed 3 blocks, knocking on doors, asking neighbors if anyone knew an Eli. Nothing. No sign of a child. No record of that landline in the system either. Just static by the time the shift ended. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. That voice, that whisper that didn't belong. I drove home with the radio off, listening to the rain thumping against my windshield. Every few seconds, I glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a kid in the back seat. When I got home, I sat on the edge of my bed and wrote everything down in my notebook. The time of the call, what he said, the sounds, the pauses. It's something I do sometimes. Helps me forget. Only this time, I didn't want to forget. The next day, I came in early to review the call log. Line 12 was still marked as unverified origin. I pulled the audio file anyway, hoping maybe I'd misheard something. A clue, an address, a background sound I'd missed. But when I played it back, it was different. No breathing, no boy's voice, just static. The entire call was gone. The log still said 4 minutes and 22 seconds, but the recording was nothing but white noise. It wasn't just corrupted. It had been overwritten. That's not something that happened by accident. I called IT. They checked the backup servers. Same result. The file existed, but there was no data inside. A blank shell. Carla swore she heard me talking to the kid. She remembered my face, how pale I looked. She even remembered hearing the tapping through my headset, but there was no trace of it. I told myself it was a glitch. It had to be. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had listened back. That night, I dreamed of rain again, and a small voice whispering. He's wearing my dad's coat. Only this time, when I turned around in the dream, I was sitting at the 911 desk, headset on, and the call was coming from my house. I woke up gasping. The clock said 3:12 a.m. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. I checked my phone, half expecting to see a missed call or message. Nothing. Just that faint hiss of rain against glass. I tried to shake it off, make coffee, distract myself. But when I walked past the front window, I froze. There were small fingerprints on the glass. Too small to be mine. The next morning, I didn't mention it to anyone. Didn't want to sound crazy. But I did file a report, a vague one, about a possible missing child named Eli. No last name, no address, just a note for the record. A week passed, then another storm rolled in. Same low thunder, same flickering lights in the call center. And around midnight, line 12 lit up again. Same number, same no location tag. I stared at it for a long time. Carla asked, "You gonna answer that?" I picked up the receiver. 911, what's your emergency? At first, only static, then breathing. Familiar, shallow, trembling. Eli, I said, barely above a whisper. But the voice that answered wasn't his. It was a woman this time. Soft, broken. She said, "Who's Eli?" Before I could respond, the line clicked and went silent again. I still hear that static sometimes. Even when no calls are coming in, it bleeds through the headset, soft and steady, like rain on an old radio. Sometimes, if I listen long enough, I can almost hear it, that same small voice beneath the noise, asking for help, calling from nowhere, from line 12. And every time I reach for the receiver, I wonder if I'm the one answering, or if someone else is answering me. 3 days. That's how long it had been since the call, since line 12 went dead. I'd gone through those 72 hours like a ghost. No sleep, no real appetite, just waiting. Every time the storm clouds rolled in, I caught myself glancing toward the console, half expecting that little green light to flicker to life again. Carla noticed. She kept asking if I was okay, if maybe I needed time off. But I didn't need time off. I needed answers. I kept telling myself the same thing. There had to be a rational reason for it. Bad connection. Cross line. Faulty server. Something boring. Something explainable. But deep down I knew better. Because no technical glitch leaves fingerprints on your window. On the third night, I came in for another late shift. It was quiet again, the kind of quiet that presses down on you, where even typing feels too loud. The storm hadn't stopped since that first night. I logged in, checked the call history. Line 12 was still inactive. I almost laughed at myself, thinking maybe the system finally gave up, and then the light blinked. Line 12. Same no ID tag. Same faint signal ping west side of town. For a moment, I just stared at it. My throat went dry. It couldn't be. Carla turned to me, noticed the light too. "You gonna answer that?" she said, half joking. I nodded slowly and picked up the receiver. 911, what's your emergency? Static, a low, steady hiss. Then breathing, fast, uneven, familiar. "Eli." A pause. Then a soft voice, "He's back." My stomach dropped. It was him. The same voice. The same scared tone, like a whisper caught between tears. "Eli," I said carefully, "where are you right now?" He sniffled. "In my room. I did what you said. I locked the door." "Okay, that's good. You're doing great." "Eli, can you tell me your address? Do you remember the numbers outside your house?" I tried to sound calm, but my voice shook. The whole thing felt wrong. I knew this call. I knew every word of it. He was repeating it, word for word. Even the small pauses. The same faint tapping sound. I swallowed hard. "Eli, is there anyone with you right now?" He didn't answer right away. Just that quiet breathing and the faint hum of static between each word. Then he whispered. "He's wearing my dad's coat." The exact same sentence. Every syllable. My skin prickled all over. I whispered, "Eli, when did this start? When did you first see him?" He said, "The lights went out and the knocking started. He's outside my window again." That's when I knew this wasn't live. This wasn't happening now. It was the same call, the same conversation, playing out again like an echo. Except this time, the background noise was different. There was something faint behind his voice. A deeper tone, like wind moving through an empty hallway. I leaned forward, trying to listen closer. And then I heard it, a whisper beneath his own. It said, "Don't hang up." I froze. That voice, it wasn't his. It sounded older, almost like a man trying to imitate a child. I muted my mic and flagged the call for trace again, but the system threw back an error. Number not found. Same as before. I unmuted. "Eli, can you tell me if your mom's home now? Or anyone else?" He said, "Mom's not home." Then, after a pause, "You said you'd send someone." "I did, Eli. I promise you, I did. The officers went to your house, but couldn't find you. Are you sure you're still there?" The static hissed louder. Then a faint voice, mine, came through the line, not from my headset, from the recording itself. It said, "Okay, Eli, help is on the way." My blood ran cold. That was me. My exact words from 3 nights ago. The call was looping, but not just looping, changing, repeating pieces, but with tiny differences, like it was trying to remember how the conversation went. I ended the call after 3 minutes and 22 seconds. Or at least, I thought I did. The line cut out on its own before I could disconnect. When I checked the system, it showed 2 active channels, both line 12. 2 identical feeds. One labeled incoming, one labeled playback. But there's no such thing as playback during a live call. I called over the supervisor, Brian, and asked him to listen. He tried, but by the time he got to my desk, both lines went dead. He laughed it off. Probably a recording glitch. Old systems act weird during storms. He told me to let IT handle it. But when I looked at the timestamp, my stomach twisted. The call wasn't logged for that night. It was dated 8 days ago, before the first call even happened. I didn't go home after my shift. I drove straight to the west side, to the area the system always tried to ping. A cluster of small houses surrounded by pine trees, most of them old and half empty. Rain came down in sheets, drumming on the car roof. I parked near the cul-de-sac, engine running, headlights cutting through the mist. Every few minutes, I scanned through house numbers, matching them against anything close to Eli. Nothing came up. Then I saw it. A yellow house near the end of the street, windows boarded up, mailbox still standing, tilted to one side. The nameplate said H. Cooper. Something about it felt familiar. I stepped out, rain soaking through my jacket immediately. The house looked abandoned, but near one of the side windows, under grime and dust, I saw them, small handprints, pressed against the glass from the inside. When I got back to work, I pulled the property record. The address matched the rough grid trace from both calls. Owner, Heather Cooper. No record of anyone currently living there. So I looked her up. Single mother. Son named Elijah. Both reported missing 9 days ago. 9 days, which means the first call came 2 days after the boy went missing. And this second one, the repeat, came a full week later. My hand started shaking so badly I could barely hold the mouse. It wasn't possible. How could he have called me? Twice, after he disappeared. That night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep. I kept replaying it in my head. The voice, the static, the whisper that said, "Don't hang up." At 3:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. For a long time, I just stared at the screen. The rain was coming down again, just like before. Same rhythm. Same sound. I answered. Hello. Static. A faint breath. Then in that same small voice. Are you still there? I almost dropped the phone. It was him. But this time, I wasn't at work. This wasn't line 12. This was my personal phone. Eli, I whispered. He said, I did what you said. I stayed in my room. But he found me. I wanted to ask 100 things, where he was what he meant, but my mouth wouldn't move. Then I heard something that made my blood go cold. Another voice, faint, right behind his. It said my name, not my last name, not operator, my first name. And it wasn't a question. It was the statement, like it already knew me. Then, just like before, the call ended. No goodbye. No click. Just silence. The next morning, I checked my call history. No record. The number didn't exist. Not even as unknown. I called Carla. Asked if anything strange came in overnight. She said no, but her tone was different. Hesitant. Then she asked something that made my stomach knot. She said, Did you change the greeting on the emergency line? What greeting? I asked. She hesitated. When I logged in, line 12 kept flashing. I thought it was a tech test. So I picked up, but it wasn't static. It was your voice. I went cold. My voice. Yeah, she said. You were saying, 911, what's your emergency? But it sounded like an old recording. Only you said something weird at the end. I swallowed. What did I say? Carla was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered. You said, I told you not to hang up. Since then, I've started hearing things through the headset when it rains. Not full voices. Just whispers buried under the static. Like an old recording of a recording, fading and stretching over time. Sometimes it's the boy. Sometimes it's the whispering man. And sometimes it's me, all saying the same thing. Over and over. Don't hang up. I didn't go back to work for 2 days after that second call. I told them I had the flu, but the truth was, I couldn't bring myself to put the headset back on. Every time I tried to sleep, I'd hear it, that thin, broken voice saying my name. The world outside didn't help either. The storms just kept coming one after another. Thunder rolling like something was walking above the clouds, never stopping. I started leaving the TV on at night. Not to watch, just for noise. I needed something human in the room with me. But even through the static of old reruns, I swore I could still hear the faint hum of the call tone. That slow, beeping sound that means someone's waiting on the other end. When I finally forced myself to go back to the call center, it felt different, colder. Even the lights seemed dimmer than I remembered. Carla smiled when she saw me, but her smile looked tight, almost forced. She didn't mention the recording she heard in my voice last time. Neither did I. Some things are better left unspoken, at least for a while. Still, I couldn't focus. The lines kept blinking. Even the quiet ones seemed to pulse a little too slowly, like they were breathing. I decided to do something I shouldn't have. Something that's against policy. I accessed the archive system. The dispatch archive isn't easy to get into. Every call is recorded, time-stamped, backed up twice. You need clearance to access anything more than 7 days old. But I still had my supervisor's login saved from the last audit. It felt wrong, typing it in, like crossing a line you can't uncross. The interface loaded, a list of numbers, dates, and call durations. I scrolled until I found them. Line 12 to 422, unverified origin. Line 12 to 322, unverified origin. Both calls were marked with my operator ID, number 3207. I hit play. At first, nothing but that softness again, then the faint crackle of rain, and then the sound of me speaking. 911, what's your emergency? My voice, clear, calm, exactly like I remembered saying it that night. Then came the boy. Someone's outside. I felt my stomach turn. The fear in his voice, it wasn't something you could fake. It was raw, real, like the kind of fear that lives inside you long before it ever makes it to your mouth. I listened to the rest, each word carving deeper into me. Then, halfway through, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. There was a faint echo behind my voice. Barely there at first, like someone whispering the same words half a second late. And the more I listened, the louder it got, until I realized what I was hearing. It was me, repeating everything I said, perfectly, just a half beat behind. I thought maybe it was a recording overlap. 2 channels layered by accident, but when I opened the second file, the newer one, it was worse. This time, the boy's words were fragmented, like someone had chopped the tape into pieces and glued it back together wrong. There were gaps, silences that felt too long, and under it all, a whisper that wasn't in the first one. It said my name, soft at first, then clearer, Rachel. It wasn't the boy's voice. It wasn't even a voice I recognized. It sounded older, flat, like someone reading my name off a list for the first time. I ripped the headset off and paused the playback. My heart was pounding so loud it filled the room. I looked around. Carla was gone. The others were on their calls, heads down, unaware, but the monitor was still running. The waveform kept moving even though I paused it. For a second, I thought the program froze. Then the speakers let out a faint pop, and my voice came through again, but I wasn't talking. It said, "Why did you hang up?" I slammed the power key, and the screen went black. I sat there, shaking. The whole floor was humming with the sound of rain hitting the roof. It was like the world outside had no pause button. I told myself it had to be some glitch, maybe audio bleeding from another line. But I couldn't explain the timing or the whisper that knew my name. So I did something else I shouldn't have done. I pulled the backup drive. It's a small thing, like a silver box the size of your hand, locked behind a metal panel under each station. Each one records the audio locally before it's uploaded to the server. If the system was glitched, the backup should have been clean. I plugged it into the console and opened the raw data. No timestamps, no logs, just one file. Untitled. I hit play. There was no intro beat, no ID tone, just my voice, faint and distorted. 911, what's your emergency? Then static. Then the boy. But he didn't say what he'd said before. Not this time. He said, "You're not supposed to be listening." The screen glitched, not the monitor, the audio file itself. Like the sound was bending. Every few seconds, I'd hear echoes of myself from different nights, different calls, all woven together. Different emergencies, different people, but always the same line. 911, what's your emergency? Over and over, layered like it was feeding back on itself. And underneath all of it, buried deep, was the sound of rain and the tapping, that same soft, rhythmic tapping on glass. I yanked out the headset again. My throat felt tight, like I couldn't breathe right. Every light in the room seemed too bright. I stood up, ready to tell someone, anyone, but the whole floor looked empty now. All the desks were still there. The screens were still glowing, but the chairs were empty. I blinked. Then suddenly, everything snapped back. The chatter, the hum of machines, Carla laughing at the next desk over. It was like I'd glitched, not the system. Like I'd slipped out of time for a second. I sat back down, trying to keep my hands steady. On the monitor, the file had stopped, but the time counter was still running. It read midnight/midnight, and even with no audio playing, I could still hear the whisper in my ear, quiet, slow, patient. Rachel. I turned around. Nobody. Then it said, "You answered." That night, I took the backup drive home with me. I know how that sounds, but I couldn't leave it there. It felt wrong leaving it plugged in, like it would keep recording even when the system was off. At home, I sat on my desk. The house was dark, except for the blue light from my computer screen. The rain hadn't stopped. I opened the drive again. The file was gone. In its place was a new one, timestamped for that night. I hadn't recorded anything that night. I wasn't even on duty. Still, I clicked it. At first, silence, then static, then me. 911, what's your emergency? Except it wasn't coming from the recording anymore. It was coming from behind me. I spun around. The house was empty. The rain grew louder, pressing against the windows like it wanted in. And then, for just a second, I heard it again, faint through the rain, like an echo from far away. That soft tapping. I looked toward the window and saw it. Tiny handprints, fresh, one after another, pressing slowly against the glass from the outside. Too small to be mine. I backed away, heart slamming in my chest, until I hit the desk. The monitor flickered once. Then the audio file started playing on its own. My voice, the boy's voice, the whisper, all blending together. And beneath it, one last thing, a soft laugh. Low, almost amused. Then a whisper, so close it felt like it was inside my ear. Don't stop listening. I shut the computer down, unplugged everything. But even now when it rains, even faintly, I swear I can still hear it. That same voice, that same recording, playing over and over somewhere I can't find. Sometimes it's just static. Sometimes it's me, saying words I don't remember saying. And sometimes it's the boy, asking if I'm still there. And I never know if I should answer, because I'm scared that if I do, I won't be the one speaking anymore. I still remember the smell that night. Wet dirt, gasoline, pine, that kind of cold that gets under your jacket and clings to your ribs. I'd only been a park ranger for 3 months. New uniform, new boots, still learning the radio codes. So when the call came in about a missing girl near mile marker 17, I didn't think twice. It was raining, and everyone else already had their routes assigned. The senior ranger, Bill, tossed me the keys and said, "Stay on the trail, don't wander." Then he gave me that look, the kind people give when they're trying not to tell you something. I didn't ask what. The rain hadn't let up since sunset. By the time I got to the trailhead, the forest was nothing but fog and black water. Every light beam just bounced off the mist. You couldn't see 10 feet ahead. I parked by the wooden sign that said mile marker 17 and turned off the engine. The sound of the rain hitting the roof was so loud it felt alive. And under it, nothing. No frogs. No wind. Not even the trees moving. Just that silence. Thick and heavy. I thought maybe the girl had wandered off the main path, so I grabbed my flashlight and radio. The dispatcher's voice crackled faintly. A woman I didn't know. She said the girl's name was Lila, 9 years old. Went missing while camping with her parents. She said they found her shoes half a mile from their site, right on the edge of the woods. Then she told me something else, her voice quiet. "Just be careful out there." I asked what she meant. She didn't answer. The radio just clicked once and went silent. The forest smelled strange after rain, sweet and rotten at the same time. My boots sank into mud with every step. The beam from my flashlight looked weak, like it was getting swallowed by the air itself. I kept calling her name. "Lila, Park Ranger Service, can you hear me?" Nothing, not even an echo. After a few minutes, I found the first marker, a white ribbon tied to a tree. Search teams use them to mark the area they've covered. But this one looked wrong. Old, frayed, like it had been there for years. I checked my map. According to that, there shouldn't even be a marker here. This section was off limits, an old service road that got washed out 2 winters ago. Still, I followed it. Something about it felt drawn, like maybe she'd gone that way, too. The deeper I went, the thicker the fog became. It wasn't drifting or moving. It just sat there, dense, breathing. Every sound I made came back to me a second too late. Then, just ahead, I saw it, a pink raincoat caught on a low branch. My chest tightened. I ran up, but when I grabbed it, the fabric was dry, completely dry. In that downpour, it didn't make sense. Inside the coat pocket was something small, a folded piece of paper, torn at the edge. When I opened it, I saw a single word written in pencil. Listen. The rain stopped, just like that. The silence was so sharp it hurt. No wind, no dripping leaves, not even my own breathing for a moment. Then, from somewhere far off, I heard it, a faint voice, high-pitched, scared, a little girl calling out, "Hello." It sounded like it came from deeper in the woods. I yelled her name and started running. Branches scraped my jacket. The mud nearly pulled off my boots, but I didn't stop. "Lila, stay where you are. I'm coming." The voice answered again, but it was strange this time. Closer, still soft, but off somehow, like someone trying to sound like a child. I slowed down, shined my flashlight ahead. The beam hit something pale between the trees, a shape that moved. Then it vanished. I took a few more steps and came to a clearing. It was small, maybe 30 feet across, surrounded by thick pines. And right in the center was a single wooden post. Old, weathered, almost like a fence post. There was a metal plate bolted to the top. When I wiped the dirt away, I could just barely make out the words. Mile marker 17. But that didn't make sense. I'd left the road at mile 17. I should have been at least a mile past it by now. I looked behind me. No trail, no sign of where I came from. Just trees. Then the voice came again, right behind me this time. "Hello." I spun around, light shaking in my hand. No one. "Lila." Silence. Then a soft giggle. It sounded like it came from inside the trees. Not behind them, not in front, but inside. The fog moved then, like something big was passing through it. I couldn't see, but I could hear the faint crunch of footsteps. Slow, dragging. I called out again, my voice breaking. "Lila, answer me." The sound stopped, and then it spoke, but not like before. It said clear as day, "Don't listen." I ran. I didn't care which direction. I just needed to get out of that clearing. The forest blurred around me, wet branches whipping my face, my flashlight bouncing wildly. But no matter how far I went, the fog stayed. The trees never changed. When I finally stopped, gasping, I realized I was standing right back at the post. Mile marker 17. My flashlight flickered once, then went out. Everything went black. I fumbled for my radio. "Dispatch. This is Ranger Paulson at mile 17. I'm lost. I think I found something." The radio hissed. Then the same woman's voice came through. "Ranger Paulson, stay where you are." Her voice sounded strange, slower, stretched, like the tape was warping. I pressed the button again. "Ma'am, I think she's here. Static, then a faint noise under it, like whispering. I turned up the volume. It was hard to make out, but it almost sounded like multiple voices, all speaking over each other. And one of them was me. I dropped the radio. It hit the mud with a dull thud, but the sound didn't stop. It kept coming, now echoing faintly from the trees, repeating the same thing, over and over. "Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Stay where you are." I ran again, blindly, until I tripped over something and hit the ground hard. When I looked up, the flashlight was lying a few feet away, still flickering weakly. It was shining on something half buried in the mud, a small backpack, pink. When I pulled it out, the name tag on the back read Lila, and right below it, written in marker, was a date. The ink was smudged, but I could still read the year. 1996. I froze. That was nearly 30 years ago. I hadn't even been born. The radio clicked again. The same voice whispered, softer this time. "Paulson, are you listening?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. My throat wouldn't work. Then, through the fog, I saw a figure. Small, standing at the edge of the clearing, half hidden by the trees. She was facing away from me, barefoot, hair matted to her neck. I tried to call out, but my voice cracked. She turned, slow, careful, and for a second I saw her face. Pale, eyes wide and dark, and her mouth moved like she was trying to speak. But the sound came from somewhere else entirely. The voice was on the radio. Run. The flashlight went out. And the last thing I remember before everything went black was the sound of small, wet footsteps moving toward me. When I woke up, it was morning. The rain was gone. Sunlight was breaking through the trees. Bill and 2 other rangers were standing over me, asking what happened. I didn't know what to say. They said they found me half a mile from the main road, sitting upright, eyes open, mouth moving, but no words coming out. When they led me back, I saw it again. The post, the one I'd seen in the clearing, mile marker 17. Except this time, it was on the roadside, where it had always been. No fog, no clearing, no sign of a little girl. Just mud and rain and the faint sound of the wind in the trees. But when we started the truck, and I looked back one last time, there was a pink raincoat hanging from a branch, still perfectly dry. They told me it was exhaustion, that I'd been out too long in the storm, dehydrated, maybe hallucinating. That's what they said after I told them what I'd seen at mile marker 17. I wanted to believe them. I tried to believe them. But when I closed my eyes that night, I could still see her face through the fog, white and wet, mouth moving like she was trying to say something that couldn't come out right. I didn't go back to the forest for a few days. They put me on light duty, checking equipment, cleaning the station. I was fine with that. The less time I spent near those woods, the better. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about the backpack, about the name tag that said Lila, and the year written underneath, 1996. The missing girl's parents came by the ranger office the next morning. I saw them from the break room. The mother's face was pale, hollow. The father just stared at the wet shoes they found. When I asked Bill what happened, he said they still hadn't found her. No footprints, no sign of struggle, like she'd just vanished. I nodded, pretending to understand. But the part that really got me, the part that still makes my stomach twist, was what he said next. They'll have to call it soon, he muttered. Same as the others. Others? I wanted to ask what that meant, but he walked away before I could. 2 nights later, the rain came back. Harder this time. The kind of storm that sounds like it's peeling the sky open. I was in the radio room, running the late shift alone. The storm had taken down the eastern power line, so most of the team was out clearing debris. I just had to monitor the channels and log any calls. Channel 1 was for field communication, Channel 2 for dispatch, Channel 3 was weather updates, and Channel 4 was supposed to be quiet, an old emergency frequency they hadn't used in years, except around midnight. It came alive. It started with static, a low, rhythmic hiss, like breathing through a radio. I tapped the receiver, thinking maybe the storm was causing interference. But then a voice broke through, soft, high-pitched, almost a whisper. Hello. I froze. That voice, it sounded like a little girl. I leaned forward and pressed the mic. This is Ranger Paulson. Who is this? No answer. Just that faint hiss again. Then, are you there? It was faint, but it came through clean this time. That same small voice. Shaky, scared. Lila? I said before I could stop myself. The radio crackled. Then she spoke again. Help me. My skin went cold. It couldn't be her. It couldn't. I grabbed the map from the desk and flicked through the radio logs. Channel 4 wasn't active anywhere in the park. There was no transmitter linked to it anymore. Where are you, Lila? I asked, can you tell me what you see? Static. Then faintly, the trees, the rain, the dark. I pressed the mic again. Are you hurt? Stay where you are. Okay, I'm going to. But then she said something that made me stop cold. Ranger 327, help me. That's my call sign. Nobody knew that except the people in the tower. Who told you that number? I asked. No answer. Just that same heavy static. Then a whisper. Don't leave. I stared at the radio for a long time after that. Part of me wanted to turn it off. Pretend it was nothing. But I couldn't. I kept listening. Waiting for her to come back. Minutes passed. Then the static shifted again. This time, it wasn't just noise. There was something else underneath it. Faint echoes, like overlapping voices, too soft to make out, and under them a deep hum, almost like an engine, but slower, more alive. I turned the dial, trying to clear the frequency. The sound wavered. Then suddenly, clear as day, came my own voice, Ranger 327, reporting from mile marker 17. I stopped breathing. It was me, the same tone, the same rhythm. But I hadn't said anything. Then my voice on the radio said something else. She's here. I grabbed the mic, heart pounding. Who is this? Identify yourself. But all I heard back was a single phrase, repeated over and over. She's here. She's here. She's here. And then, faintly, the girl's voice again. Don't let them find me. The signal cut out. I must have sat there for 20 minutes, staring at the radio. Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 footsteps above me. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, flickering just enough to make the shadows move. When Bill came back in around 1, I almost jumped out of my chair. He asked if I'd logged anything unusual. I told him, stupidly, everything. At first, he didn't say anything. Then he looked at the radio, frowned, and reached for the dial. He flipped through the channels, one by one, nothing but static. Finally, he turned it off completely. That channel's not supposed to be active, he said quietly. He looked tired, older than usual. Don't answer it again. I asked why, but he didn't answer. He just walked out. When I checked the logs the next morning, there was no record of the transmission. No audio file, no timestamp, nothing. Like it never happened. The next few nights, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The sound of my own voice, repeating from the woods. The girl saying my call sign, like she'd memorized it. I told myself I'd imagined it, but part of me knew better. Because even when I turned the radio off, I could still hear faint whispers through the static. By the 5th night, I couldn't take it anymore. I went back to the tower, alone. Rain again, of course. It always seemed to start when I thought about that night. I turned on the radio and switched to channel 4. Static, then a low hum, like a pulse. Lila, I said softly, are you there? At first, nothing. Then that same small voice, faint and broken. You shouldn't be here. I swallowed hard. Where are you, Lila? Can you tell me what happened? There was a long pause. Then, almost too quiet to hear. He said he'd take me home. Who? I whispered. Who took you? The radio hissed, then cut out completely. I smacked the side of it, and suddenly the voice came back, but this time it wasn't hers. It was mine. I told you not to come back. I dropped the mic. The voice was calm, quiet, like I was talking to myself through a wall. Then the girl's voice cut in again, layered under mine. He's still there. I felt every hair on my neck rise. The room went cold, the air heavy and still. Then, over the static, something knocked. 3 sharp taps, like someone hitting the glass of the tower window. I turned. The rain blurred everything outside, but for a split second, I thought I saw movement. Something small standing by the tree line. I picked up the flashlight and aimed it out the window. Nothing, just rain and fog. When I turned back to the radio, the voice on the other end whispered, "Look behind you." I spun so fast I dropped the flashlight. The room was empty, just a steady blink of the radio light, and my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. Then I heard it again, that same faint giggle from the woods. I grabbed the radio and yelled into it. "Who are you? What do you want?" For a few seconds, just silence. Then the static shifted and a voice came through. Not the girl, not me, but something lower. A man's voice. It said calm and slow, "Ranger 327, we found her." I froze. Who was this? No reply. Then another sound. Static breaking apart, voices whispering under it. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. And underneath them, that same deep hum I'd heard before, pulsing through the speakers. When it stopped, the channel went dead. I turned every knob, every switch. Nothing. The only sound left was the rain on the roof. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the radio tone, that sharp beat before a message comes through. When I came back to the tower the next morning, I saw Bill sitting at the desk. He looked up at me with that same tired expression. "You heard it again, didn't you?" he said. I didn't answer. He sighed and leaned back. "It happens sometimes. You're not the first." "What is it?" I asked. My voice sounded small, afraid. He stared out the window for a long time before he said it. Channel 4 picks up what the forest doesn't let go. I didn't understand what that meant. Maybe I still don't. But I swear, later that night, as I walked back to my truck, my radio crackled to life again. Channel 4. And through the static, I heard my own voice whisper, "Help me." I remember the rain never stopped that night. It just softened. It went from heavy sheets to a thin mist that clung to everything. The trees, my jacket, my eyelashes. The world smelled like mud and pine and wet decay. By then, we'd been searching for over 5 hours. The missing girl's name was Abby Keller. 7 years old. Brown hair, red raincoat, white sneakers. Her footprints had been easy to follow at first. Small, neat imprints in the wet soil along the forest trail that cut between mile marker 17 and the old fire road. Then they started to fade. I was walking point with my flashlight low, the beam cutting across the slick ground. The others, 2 deputies and another ranger, spread out behind me, scanning the tree line. No one was talking much anymore. The woods had gone silent again, like before. Too quiet for rain, too quiet for a forest. It felt like sound itself was holding its breath. When I caught the next print, I almost missed it. It wasn't the dirt this time. It was pressed into the thin layer of moss beside a fallen log. I crouched down, brushing rain off my sleeve. The print was small, barefoot, the edges filled with water. She lost her shoes. I called out. My voice didn't carry far. It just fell away into the mist. Deputy Miller came up behind me, squinting through his headlamp. "That's weird," he muttered. She was wearing sneakers when she left. I nodded. I didn't have an answer. None of US did. We kept following. The trail wound downhill toward the lake, a shallow basin of dark water about a mile from the main road. The prints continued, clear and deliberate, spaced evenly apart like someone walking calmly, not a child stumbling or running, just walking. By the time we reached the edge of the lake, the rain had stopped completely. The water was perfectly still. No ripples, no wind, just a mirror of black glass stretching out under the thin beam of my light. The prints ended there, at the shore. She had walked straight in. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the way the last footprint sank half an inch deeper than the others, like she'd stepped forward and kept going. Miller radioed the others. We got prints at the lake. Looks like she entered the water. Static. Then another voice crackled through. Copy that. Any sign of her coming out? I turned my light to the left. Nothing. Then slowly to the right. And there they were. Faint. Almost erased by the thin sheet of rainwater. Still clinging to the ground. Tiny, bare footprints leading out of the lake. They started just a few feet from where the last ones had gone in. The same small feet. But as they continued up the bank, they began to change. The first few were full-sized, then smaller, and smaller again, until the last ones, a few yards up, were the size of a baby's. I didn't say anything for a while. I think my brain was still trying to make sense of it. Finally, I called Miller over. He crouched beside me, shining his light along the trail of shrinking prints. "What the hell?" he whispered. None of us spoke after that. We followed the prints up the slope, our light shaking slightly in our hands. Each step led us deeper into the tree line, and with every few feet, the air got heavier, thicker somehow, like breathing through damp cloth. There was a smell too, Not rot, not swamp. Something else, like the inside of an old dollhouse left in the rain. Mildew and something faintly sweet, almost floral. We lost a trail near a cluster of birch trees where the ground turned to stone. No more prints, just moss and slick rock. The air felt wrong there, colder, like the mist itself was moving around us, whispering through the leaves. I looked across the lake. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was a trick of the flashlight, some reflection on the surface of the water, but the shape didn't shift with the beam. It was standing, something small, still, a figure just on the edge of the opposite shore. I couldn't make out a face, but I saw the red color of a raincoat, Abby's red raincoat. My throat went dry. "Abby?" I called softly. No answer. "Abby, it's okay. We're here to help." The figure didn't move. Then the radio at my belt crackled, loud and sharp against the silence. I flinched, looking down. Miller's voice came through, low and tense. "Did you just say something on Channel 4? "No," I said, pressing the mic. "Why?" "Because someone did," he said, "and they used your call sign." I froze, the static buzz in my ear. "Repeat that." "It came through twice," he said. "Sounded like you. Same voice." I looked back across the lake, but the figure was gone. Just ripples spreading across the water like something had stepped in or out. The silence after that was unbearable. We regrouped, but no one said much. I think we all felt it. That sinking weight in the chest that tells you something isn't right. That maybe you're not supposed to be there at all. By sunrise, the search was called off for the night. The official report said the girl's trail ended at the lake, presumed drowned. But no one ever found a body. I stayed behind after the others left, sitting on the back of my truck, staring at the water. The lake looked calm now, ordinary even, but I couldn't shake the image of those prints, getting smaller and smaller until they just vanished. Before I left, I walked down to the edge again. The ground was soft, still wet. My boots sank half an inch into the mud, and that's when I noticed something new, right beside my footprint. Another print, small, bare, fresh, facing mine. I didn't move, didn't breathe. For a few seconds, all I could hear was a soft ripple of water against the shore and a faint, high whine of static coming from my radio. Then, through the static, a voice, tiny and far away, whispered my call sign. Not once, twice. I turned off the radio and backed away from the water. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to not look back. I don't remember the drive home. I just remember the feeling of my hands on the steering wheel, cold and shaking. When I reached the ranger station, I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. The prints, the voice, the shape across the lake. But when I hung up my jacket in the locker room, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Mud. Tiny, wet footprints leading from the door to the corner of the room, each one smaller than the last. And at the end of the trail, a single red button. Plastic, torn from a child's raincoat. I still keep it in a drawer by my bed. I don't know why. Maybe part of me is still hoping she'll come back. Or maybe she already has. Because sometimes when it rains, I swear I hear a voice whisper my name over the radio again. Faint, like it's coming from underwater. And every time I answer, even though I shouldn't, even though I know it isn't her. It's been 6 months since that night at the lake. 6 months since Abby Keller vanished. And yet somehow, I still wake up drenched in cold sweat, heart pounding, certain that I'm still out there, still in those woods, flashlight trembling in my hand, rain whispering through the trees. At first, the nightmares were always the same. I'd dream I was back at the shoreline, staring at those tiny footprints. They'd lead into the lake, then out again, shrinking with each step until they disappeared into the dark. Then I'd wake up, gasping for air, the sound of water dripping somewhere in my house, even though it hadn't rained in weeks. But lately, the dreams have changed. Now, I'm not the one searching for her anymore. I'm the one being searched for. It starts the same way every time. I hear my radio crackle, that faint hiss of static, like soft rain falling inside my head. Then a voice comes through, distant and desperate. Unit 7, do you copy? Mike, can you hear us? It's Miller's voice. He sounds tired, older somehow, and when I try to respond, nothing comes out. My radio won't transmit. My throat won't work. Then I realize I'm standing in the woods again. The same trail, the same damp soil under my boots. But something's off. The trees look taller, the path narrower. The air feels heavier, like fog pressing against my skin. I start walking, flashlight in hand, scanning through the mist. And that's when I notice it. The smell, not pine, not rain. Something sweeter, sickly, like flowers left to rot in a vase. Mike, come in. The voice says again, cutting through the fog. I turn, try to find where it's coming from. And that's when I see the lights. Beams of flashlights flickering through the trees, far away. Searchlights. They're moving slowly, sweeping across the forest floor. And then I hear another voice. Faint but familiar. Tracks lead this way. Looks like he was heading toward the lake. I freeze. They're not searching for Abby anymore. They're searching for me. That's when the dream usually breaks. And I wake up gasping. But last night it didn't. Last night it went further. In the dream, I tried to call out, to tell them I was there, that I was okay, but no sound came out. My voice was gone. I waved my flashlight toward the search team, but the light sputtered and died. The forest swallowed everything, every sound, every echo, until there was only the sound of footsteps, mine, crunching on wet earth. Then I saw something ahead, a glint of red through the trees. At first, I thought it was Abby's raincoat again, but when I got closer, I saw it wasn't fabric at all. It was a flare. Someone had stuck into the mud at the base of a tree, burning low and steady, casting everything in a dim red glow. And at the center of that red circle, footprints, bare, small, leading toward the lake. I wanted to turn back, but something pulled me forward. The air was thick, humming with static, and my name kept whispering through it, faint and broken. Mike, Mike. When I reached the lake, the water wasn't still like before. It was rippling hard, like something was moving beneath the surface. And there, standing knee-deep in the dark water, was a figure. I couldn't see her face, but she was small, barefoot. Abby. I whispered, or at least I think I did. The word barely left my lips. She turned her head, slowly, like she'd been waiting for me to say it. And that's when I saw her reflection in the water. It wasn't hers. It was mine. That's when I woke up, heart pounding, skin cold, the sound of static still buzzing in my ears. I sat on the edge of my bed until sunrise, just listening. The house was silent. But when I turned on my radio out of habit, I swear I heard something faint, a voice buried under static. Unit 7, come in. That's me. That's my old call sign. I haven't been on duty in months. I took leave after the search. Said I needed time. The truth is, I just couldn't go back. The woods don't feel like the same place anymore. Every trail, every shadow feels like it's watching. But hearing that call again, I don't know, it shook something loose inside me. That afternoon, I drove back out to mile marker 17, just to see it in daylight. I told myself, just to make sure I hadn't imagined everything. The road was washed out from the spring floods, half covered in leaves and branches. The sign was rusted, numbers barely visible. When I stepped out of the truck, the air hit me, that same wet, heavy stillness I remembered. No wind, no birds, just silence. I walked the trail again, counting each step. It felt smaller now, more closed in, like the forest had shifted while I was gone. Halfway down, I found something lying in the mud, a piece of plastic. I brushed the dirt away. It was the same red button from Abby's coat, the one I'd found in the ranger station months ago. But I'd left that button at home, in a drawer by my bed. That's when I realized something. I could hear the faint buzz of a radio again. I checked mine, but it was off. The sound wasn't coming from me. It was coming from somewhere deeper in the woods. I should have turned back. Every rational part of me was screaming to, but I didn't. I followed the sound, moving slowly, flashlight cutting through the undergrowth. The static grew louder, sharper, until I could almost make out words. Search continues negative on visual. Then another voice, low, steady. Copy that. Last known location, near the lake. The same search. The same words I'd heard in the dream. And that's when I saw them. Through the trees, flashlights. 3 of them, moving slowly along the bank. Figures in ranger jackets, just like the team from that night. I opened my mouth to call out, but the sound caught in my throat, because when I looked closer, I saw their faces. They weren't moving like people searching. They were moving like echoes, their steps perfectly in sync, repeating the same motions over and over. One kneeling, one scanning, one turning toward the water. Then the kneeling one lifted his head, and even through the mist, I recognized him, Miller, but not as I remembered. His face was pale, eyes empty, lips moving like he was still whispering into a dead radio. Unit 7, he said softly. Do you copy? The static roared in my ears. I stumbled back, tripping over a root, hitting the ground hard. My flashlight skidded away and landed near the water's edge. And in its beam, I saw it again, those same small, bare footprints, leading straight toward me. I didn't wait. I ran. Branches tore my jacket, mud splashed up my legs. But even as I ran, I could hear it. That voice following me through the trees. Unit 7, we found him. I made it back to my truck, slammed the door, and just sat there shaking, rain streaking down the windshield even though the sky above was clear. The radio on the dash clicked once, then twice, and a voice came through, faint but unmistakable. Search complete. Subject located. No pulse. The transmission cut. I don't remember driving home. All I remember is that when I woke up this morning, there was mud on my boots, and the same red button sitting on my nightstand, wet as if it had just come out of the lake. I don't dream anymore. Not the same way. Now every night, I just hear static, and through it, faint voices calling my name, searching for me. And sometimes just before I wake up, I see a reflection in the water, a ranger, flashlight in hand, walking along the shore. Only this time, he's not looking for anyone. He's looking out. I've worked at the county dispatch center for almost 12 years now. It's one of those jobs that doesn't sound like much until you've done it long enough to see the cracks between people's voices. You start to hear what panic really sounds like, what regret sounds like, what dying sounds like. When I first started, everything was still done with tapes. Thick gray cassettes labeled with dates and call IDs. Each shift had its own box, rows and rows of them stacked in a back room that always smelled like metal and stale coffee. A few months ago, the department decided to digitize everything. Preserve the archives, they said, which really meant make room for more boxes. So every night after my shift, I'd sit in that back room and feed tapes into converter one by one, while the screen recorded their static and clicks into clean little files. It was quiet work, peaceful even, until the night I found the tape. It was in a small cardboard box near the bottom shelf. Unlike the others, this one wasn't labeled properly. Just a date, July 19th, 1998, written in faded red marker. No call number, no shift ID. Usually, that means it's a test tape or some kind of training sample, but something about the handwriting stopped me. It looked rushed, uneven, almost like whoever wrote it had been shaking. I remember sitting there for a moment, just staring at it. The hum of the fluorescent light above me sounded too loud. Then I slid it into the player. The audio crackled to life, static at first, then silence. A faint hiss under the tape's age. Then a voice, a child's voice. Hello. I leaned closer to the speaker. The kid sounded young, maybe 7, 8 at most. There was fear in his tone, but not the kind that comes from a scraped knee. It was deeper, a kind of trembling confusion that made the hair rise on my arms. This is 911, I heard the operator say, her tone professional but gentle. What's your emergency? The boy hesitated. You could hear his small breath shaking against the receiver. Someone's in my house. I felt my chest tighten a little. I've taken dozens of calls like that before. But something about hearing it from that tape, from decades ago, made it feel heavier. The operator's voice softened. "Okay, sweetheart, what's your name?" A pause. "Eli." "All right, Eli. Are you alone right now?" Another breath. Then quietly, "I think so." "What makes you think someone's in the house, Eli?" I could hear faint creaking noises in the background, the kind old houses make when they settle, except these creaks sounded patterned, like footsteps moving slowly across a wooden floor. "He's walking," the boy whispered. The operator's voice became firmer. "Eli, I need you to go somewhere safe, okay? Can you hide for me?" There was a shuffle, some bumping sounds. Then the boy said, "I'm in the closet." "Good. Stay quiet for me. Where do you live, Eli?" When he said the address, my stomach dropped. He said my address. I actually laughed out loud at first. Just a short, confused breath through my nose. I thought I misheard it, so I replayed that part. He said it again, clearly this time. The same street, the same house number. My house. I paused the tape and just sat there. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I even checked the box again, half expecting some kind of prank label or old training recording tag with random details. But no, the handwriting was old, the paper yellowed. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I pressed play again. The operator was still talking softly, trying to keep him calm. "Do you see anyone, Eli?" There was a stretch of static, then the faint sound of breathing, too close to the receiver. "No," the boy whispered, "but he's still walking." The footsteps sounded closer now. I could hear them clearly through the tape, slow and heavy. The boards groaned under each step. "Eli, where's he now?" Silence, then almost inaudible. "He's outside the door." My eyes stayed fixed on the spinning reels. I didn't even blink. The operator's voice trembled for the first time. "Stay quiet, Eli. The police are on their way. Just don't make a sound." There was a faint click, maybe the door's latch shifting. Then a long exhale from the boy, like he was trying not to cry. The footsteps stopped. For a full minute, the tape was nothing but soft static and the child's shaky breaths. Then, suddenly a noise, like a closet door creaking open. The boy whimpered, "Please don't." And then the tape cut off. Just the silence. I stared at the player, waiting for the next sound. But it never came. No dispatch or follow-up, no intercall note, nothing. Just the soft, looping hiss of a dead channel. I must have sat there for 10 minutes, listening to that silence. My hands were cold. My mouth felt dry. Eventually, I hit stop and ejected the tape. The room felt different now. Smaller somehow, like the walls had moved closer without me noticing. I put the tape aside and opened the dispatch database to cross-check the call. Every emergency call is logged by date and address, even the oldest ones. But when I typed in the date, July 19th, 1998, nothing came up for that address. Not a single record. That shouldn't be possible. I tried the county's main archive, then the old printed logs. Still nothing. No report, no transcript, no responding officer's note. It was like the call never existed. For the rest of my shift, I couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the boys whisper again, that last trembling, "Please don't." By the time I clocked out, I convinced myself it was a coincidence. Maybe someone once lived in the same house and used it as a fake example for training. Old tapes get mislabeled all the time. That night, I went home and tried to forget about it. But when I pulled into my driveway, the first thing I noticed was how quiet the house looked. My wife and daughter were visiting her sister that week. So it was just me. The porch light flickered a little. It always does when the power's low. But for some reason, it made me uneasy. Inside, the air felt heavy, stale, like no one had breathed there for days. I microwaved some leftovers, sat down in front of the TV, but my mind kept drifting back to that voice. I couldn't help picturing a small boy hiding in my closet, clutching the phone, whispering for help. Eventually, I gave in. I went upstairs and stood in front of the closet in the hallway, the same one where I keep my work uniforms and winter coats. I opened it slowly, half smiling at myself for being ridiculous. Of course, it was empty, but there was a faint smell inside, something like dust and old wood. And for a split second, I thought I heard something faint, a whisper, maybe, the same soft static hum from the tape. I stepped back and closed the door. Hard. I didn't sleep much that night. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The refrigerator hum, the creak of the stairs, even the wind brushing against the siding. I told myself it was just nerves. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to a noise that froze me completely. It was the sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving across the floor below. At first, I thought it was just a house settling again, but these steps were too distinct. They had weight, a rhythm. I sat up in bed, straining to listen. They stopped. Then a faint creak, like the door at the bottom of the stairs. I held my breath. My heart pounded so hard I could hear in my ears. The steps started again, this time on the stairs. I reached for the baseball bat I keep beside the bed, forcing myself to breathe. Each step was slower than the last, dragging slightly, as if whoever, whatever, was coming up didn't want to be heard. When the sound reached the top step, it stopped. The hallway outside my door was silent. I don't know how long I sat there before I finally got the courage to move. I opened the door quickly. Bat raised, nothing. Just the empty hallway lit by the faint glow of the night light from my daughter's room. But that's when I noticed it. The closet door, the same one I checked earlier, was open, just slightly. I walked toward it, every step slow, cautious. The air felt colder near it, like the temperature had dropped a few degrees. I pushed the door open wider. Nothing, just coats, shoes, and shadows. I stood there for a while, gripping the bat until my fingers hurt. Then I shut the door again and went back to bed. But I didn't sleep. The next morning, I went back to the dispatch center. I told my supervisor about the unlabeled tape, but when we went to look for it, it was gone. The entire box was missing. He told me I must have mixed it up with the converted ones. But I know I didn't. I checked every single file from that night. Nothing with that date, nothing with that address. It's like the system swallowed it whole. That was 3 days ago. Since then, every night, I hear something faint in the house. A soft creak, a whisper, a sound that shouldn't be there. Last night, I could have sworn I heard a child's voice down the hall. Just one word. Please. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with that. I can't tell my wife. She'll think I'm losing it. Maybe I am. Maybe it's just exhaustion, mixed with all those calls I've heard over the years. They get under your skin eventually. But tonight, when I got home, there was a small box sitting by my front door. No label, no return address. Just an old cardboard box sealed with yellow tape. It looked exactly like the one from the archive room. And when I brought it inside and opened it, inside was a single cassette, labeled in red marker, July 20th, 1998. That's tomorrow's date. I didn't sleep much after I found that box. All night, I kept staring at the cassette sitting on the kitchen table. The red writing on it looked newer than it should have. Fresh ink, not faded like the one from the archives. It was the same handwriting, though, that same uneven scrawl. I tried telling myself it was a prank. Someone from work messing with me after I mentioned the old tape. But when I thought about it, no one else knew my address. No one from dispatch had ever been to my house. By dawn, the sky outside had turned gray and heavy. I decided I couldn't stay there anymore, without figuring out what was going on. So, before heading to work, I went down to the basement. It's an old house, built sometime in the 1940s, and the basement shows it. The walls are a mix of stone and poured concrete, and there's a crawl space under the stairs that I've never really bothered with. Just a dark, narrow gap filled with cobwebs and the kind of damp air that smells like wet paper. I don't even know what I was expecting to find. Maybe some evidence that a kid really did live here once. Something to make sense of that voice on the tape. But what I found instead, when I stepped off the last stair, I noticed a small crack running along the wall near the crawl space. It wasn't wide, but it caught my eye because it hadn't been there before. The paint had bubbled and flaked, and underneath, I could see a line of old drywall. For some reason, it looked newer than the rest of the wall. I got a flashlight and knelt down. The The beam caught faint tool marks, small circular patterns, like someone had screwed a panel in place. The edges were sealed over with paint, just enough to make it blend in. It wasn't part of the original structure. Someone had added it later. The rational part of me said it was probably just a repair job. But the longer I stared, the less I believed that. It felt deliberate, like someone had tried to hide something behind it. I hesitated for a long time before touching it. My hands were shaking, and not from the cold. Finally, I got a hammer from the toolbox and started chipping away at the paint. The sound echoed through the basement. Sharp, hollow knocks that made the space feel too large and too quiet at the same time. When I pried off the first bit of drywall, a stale, musty air escaped from behind it. The smell hit me immediately, mold, dust, and something else underneath, something metallic. I widened the hole until I could fit my arm through. Then I shone the flashlight inside. What I saw made my skin crawl. There was a small room behind the wall. Not a crawl space, a room barely 5 feet across, with wooden planks for walls and a low ceiling. The kind of space you'd never notice unless you knew it was there. I pushed through the opening, scraping my shoulder on the jagged drywall. The air inside was heavy, still, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. The flashlight's beam landed on something in the corner, a small wooden chair, and beside it, an old rotary phone. I felt the breath leave my lungs. It looked exactly like the one we use to keep in the dispatch archives, the kind from the 80s, beige and cracked from age. The coiled cord was still attached, trailing along the floor and disappearing into a hole in the wall. I don't know why, but my first thought was this is where he called from. That kid, Eli. It didn't make sense, the timeline, the story, any of it. But standing in that hidden room, I could almost feel him there, like the air still remembered his fear. I crouched beside the chair. The wood creaked under the weight of my hand. There were small scuff marks on the floor beneath it, like someone had shifted nervously while sitting there. The phone was coated in a layer of dust, but the receiver was slightly cleaner, like it had been touched more recently. I hesitated before picking it up. My heart was pounding and my mouth felt dry. I lifted the receiver slowly. There was no dial tone, just silence. Then, after a few seconds, a faint click, and another, like someone picking up on the other end. I froze. My pulse thudded in my ears. "Hello?" I whispered. Nothing, just soft static, almost too quiet to notice. Then, buried under that static, a voice. It was faint, distorted, like it was coming from underwater. "Is someone there?" It was a child's voice. I nearly dropped the receiver. I wanted to hang up, to run back upstairs, but I couldn't move. "Who is this?" I managed to say. There was a pause. Then the same voice, trembling. "He's still here." The line went dead. I stood there, clutching the receiver, staring at the wall like it might start talking to me. The silence that followed was worse than the voice. When I finally put the phone down, I noticed something carved into the wall beside the chair. It was small and uneven, written in a child's handwriting. 3 words. "He's behind me." My flashlight trembled in my hand. I turned around slowly, every muscle in my body tense. But there was nothing, just the empty space behind me, and the faint smell of damp wood. That was enough for me. I climbed out of that room and sealed the opening with a board. I couldn't bear to look at it anymore. But ever since then, the house hasn't felt the same. At night, I hear faint clicking sounds coming from beneath the stairs, rhythmic, mechanical, like the sound of a rotary dial turning. Sometimes I swear I hear the faint ring of a phone. Not loud, just soft enough to make me doubt I really heard it. I keep telling myself it's my imagination, the stress, the lack of sleep, all the strange coincidences. But then I remember what the boy said on the tape. He's walking. And the sound I've been hearing lately isn't just clicking. It's footsteps, soft, deliberate, pacing back and forth on the floorboards. I even tried to record the sound with my phone one night, but when I played it back, all I heard was static. The next morning, the cassette that had been on the kitchen table was gone. In its place was the old rotary phone, sitting exactly where the box had been. The receiver was off the hook, and the line was still open. It was just past midnight when I found the car. I was working the night shift, driving the county back roads like I always do. Out here, most nights are quiet, just fog, pine trees, and long stretches of silence that feel heavier than they should. You get used to it after a while. The kind of stillness that makes you feel like the world's already ended and no one told you. That night, the radio was full of static. Even the dispatch frequency kept cutting in and out. I remember thinking it was strange because the weather was clear, cold, but no storm, no wind, just empty air and the kind of moonlight that makes everything look washed out and unreal. I was heading down Route 16 near the old quarry road when I saw the headlights. At first, I thought it was a car pulled over on the shoulder, maybe a drunk driver or someone with engine trouble. But as I got closer, I realized the car wasn't just stopped. It was still running. The engine idled low, steady. The headlights cut through the fog like two pale eyes. The driver's door was slightly open. I parked behind it, left my cruiser running, and grabbed my flashlight. When I stepped out, the cold hit me, the kind that bites at your throat when you breathe. The air smelled like wet dirt and gasoline. County Sheriff's Office. I called out, "Anyone here?" No answer. I walked up to the car, careful, shining my light across the side. It was a gray sedan, older model, a little rust along the doors. The window on the driver's side was halfway down. The headlights dimmed in a slow flicker, like the battery was dying. The door was open just enough to let the dome light spill across the seat. That's when I saw it. A small red toy car. Plastic. The kind you'd find in a cereal box or a gas station vending machine. It sat right in the middle of the seat, perfectly upright, like someone had just placed it there. But there was no one inside. No driver. No passengers. I leaned in a little, scanning the floor, the back seat. A woman's scarf was draped across the passenger seat. There was a takeout cup in the holder, still steaming faintly. Whatever had happened, it hadn't been long. "Dispatch, this is 214, I said into the radio. "I've got an abandoned vehicle on Route 16, just past the quarry turnoff. Engines running, no occupants. I'm going to check it out." Static, then silence. I tried again, but the radio just hissed. That was when the unease really started to crawl in. Because even when we're out of range, there's always something. A crackle, a fragment of a voice. But this, nothing. Like the signal had been swallowed up. I circled around to the back of the car. The license plate was from in-state, but there was no registration sticker. The trunk was closed, the taillights faintly glowing red through the fog. When I came back around to the driver's side, I noticed something else. Tiny footprints. They started near the car door. Small, barefoot impressions in a thin layer of dirt and frost. They led away from the road, toward the tree line. I knelt down and ran my light along them. They were spaced close together, like a child's steps, but there was something off about them. The toes pointed inward, and the prints seemed to fade the farther they went, until they just stopped. I stood there for a long time, trying to make sense of it. Maybe a kid ran off into the woods, I thought. Maybe they got scared. But there were no adult footprints. No sign of anyone chasing or following. Just those tiny tracks disappearing into nothing. I tried the radio again. Still dead, against my better judgment. I decided to check the woods. The tree line was about 20 feet from the car. The beam of my flashlight shook a little as I walked. Partly from the cold, partly from that growing sense that I shouldn't be doing this alone. The forest swallowed the sound of the road almost immediately. My boots crunched on frost-covered leaves. The fog hung low between the trees, thick and still, muting everything. "Hello," I called out. "If someone's out here, call back." Silence. Then something. A faint sound, maybe 10 or 15 feet ahead. A soft click, like plastic tapping against stone. I raised my light. There was something lying near the base of a tree. I moved closer, slow, heart thudding in my chest. It was another toy car, blue this time, half buried in leaves, with a tiny crack along the roof. I don't know why, but that's when I started to feel truly sick. Because it wasn't just a toy. It was the way it was sitting, pointed directly back toward the road, like it had been placed there to look at me. I crouched down to pick it up, and as soon as my fingers touched it, The forest went completely silent. No wind, no insects, no distant hum from the car. Just nothing. The kind of silence that feels like pressure, heavy and wrong. Then, from somewhere behind me, I heard the engine of the sedan rev once, loud, sharp, like someone had slammed the gas for a half second. I spun around and started back toward the road, flashlight jerking with my steps. But when I broke through the tree line, the car wasn't where I'd left it. It had moved. Not far, maybe 20 feet forward, but it was now sitting in the middle of the road, both front doors wide open, headlights still burning through the fog. My cruiser was exactly where I'd parked it, but the other car, it was facing the opposite direction now. I swear I hadn't heard it move. I called out again, louder this time, my voice echoing into emptiness. "Who's there? Come out where I can see you." No response. I approached slowly, every instinct in me screaming to leave. The air felt colder now, sharper, and I could smell something faintly sweet, like old antifreeze or rotting fruit. When I reached the car, the red toy from the seat was gone. But there was something new on the dashboard, a small Polaroid photo. It showed the same car, same make, same license plate, parked on the same road. Except in the photo, a figure stood beside it, a small child. The face was blurred, motion blurred maybe, but you could still make out the outline of a head tilted downward, hair falling across the eyes. I felt my throat tighten. I looked around, scanning the fog, the trees, the stretch of road in both directions. Nothing. That's when the radio finally crackled back to life. 14, do you copy? 214, you there? I grabbed it. Yeah, I'm here. Got an abandoned vehicle. Route 16 near the quarry. Possible missing person. I need backup. Static again. Then, copy that. Units en route. The voice sounded distant, warped, like it was being played through an old speaker. I turned back toward the car. The headlights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the road. I clicked my flashlight back on and shone it through the open door. The toy car was back on the seat, only now it was black. The same model, same size, but painted over every inch. I reached out with a gloved hand and nudged it slightly. It left a faint smear of wet paint on the leather. Fresh, still dripping. Something moved in the fog then, a shape, low and quick, darting across the edge of the beam. My stomach dropped. "Hey!" I shouted, stepping back, light shaking wildly. "Who's there?" The fog rippled slightly, like breath on glass. And then, for the briefest second, I heard a sound that didn't belong to the night. A small laugh, high-pitched, soft, a child's laugh. I backed away until I felt the bumper of my cruiser against my leg. I jumped in, slammed the door shut, and started the engine. The headlights cut to the fog again, but the road ahead was empty. No car, no toys, no footprints. Just the empty road and the sound of my own breathing. When I got back to the station, I checked the logs. There were no other units dispatched to that area. No record of my call. And when I went back the next morning, in daylight, there was nothing there. No car, no tire tracks, not even the faint outline of where it had been parked. But later that day, I found something on my passenger seat. A single red toy car, sitting perfectly upright. And when I turned it over, scratched into bottom, barely visible beneath the plastic, were 3 words. "Found you again." I couldn't stop thinking about that car. It stayed in my head like a song you can't turn off. The empty seat, the toy, the engine still running in the fog. I kept replaying it frame by frame, trying to make it logical. A missing driver, maybe a child got out and wandered, a trick of the light, a prank. But the part that wouldn't leave me alone was the sound I'd heard before I left. That faint, quick laugh. It had been soft, just a few seconds, but it wasn't the kind of sound your brain makes up. I knew what I'd heard. Still, when I got back to the patrol center, I didn't say anything. You learn early in this job that some things are better left off the record. People talk. You start sounding like the kind of cop who sees ghosts in every shadow, and suddenly they pull you off night shifts. I sat at my desk that morning, filling out the incident report like nothing strange had happened. Abandoned vehicle, no occupants. possible foul play, the usual words. But even as I wrote them, my hands felt tight, like something was holding me back from finishing the sentence. That's when dispatch called me over. "Hey," one of the techs said, "you were out by Route 16 last night, right?" "Yeah," I said. "Why?" She turned her monitor toward me. "You might want to hear this." On the screen was a timestamp. 12:04 a.m., same time I'd been there. "It came through the emergency line," she said. "A 911 call. Short one. Cut off before we could trace it." The file was labeled "Unknown Caller. Open line. Audio distortion." She clicked play. At first, all I heard was static. The soft, uneven hiss of bad reception. Then, under it, faint but clear rain. It was the sound of rain hitting metal, quick and rhythmic. But it wasn't raining last night. I was sure of it. The air had been bone dry, cold enough that frost covered the grass. Then a voice broke through. A child's voice. "Please, please help me." The words were quiet, almost swallowed by the static. You could hear the tremble in every syllable. My stomach tightened. The tech watched me. "Sounds like a kid, right?" I nodded slowly. "Listen to the background," she said. "It's weird." The rain kept falling, steady and close, like it was hitting the roof of a car. You could hear the faint hum of an engine underneath. The sound made my skin crawl. Then the child spoke again. "He's outside." A pause. Then more faintly, "He's knocking." The tech lowered the volume instinctively, glancing at me. "It gets stranger," she said quietly. On the recording, you could hear it now. 3 soft knocks. Even through the static, they sounded deliberate. "Where are you?" A woman's voice said on the line, the dispatcher from our team. Her tone was calm, but you could hear her breathing quicken. No response. "Can you tell me where you are?" she asked again. The child sobbed once, a sharp breath between fear and confusion. Then he whispered something. We both leaned closer to the speaker. It was hard to make out. His voice was shaking, but I could just barely hear it. "My car." The dispatcher tried again. "Okay, you're in a car? Are you alone?" Another pause. Then, "Mommy's gone." That was when the whispering started. At first, it sounded like the wind, soft, low, impossible to pinpoint. Then it grew clearer, but the words didn't make sense. They were layered, almost overlapping, like multiple voices speaking at once but slightly out of sync. I remember that moment clearly. Every instinct in me said to stop listening, to turn it off. But I couldn't. I had to know what came next. The whispering continued, mixed with static and faint tapping. Somewhere in that noise, I thought I heard the child say, "Please don't come in." Then a loud burst of static, like the mic was pressed against something, and the call cut out. Silence. The tech turned to me. "That's the whole recording. Came in about the same time you radioed in from the quarry." I didn't say anything. She studied my face. "You okay?" I nodded, even though I wasn't, because in that moment, I realized what made my skin crawl. The faint hum in the background. It wasn't just a random car engine. It sounded exactly like the one from the sedan I found. Same idle pattern, same low vibration. I knew that sound. I asked her to replay it. And when the 3 knocks came through again, I recognized the rhythm immediately. I had heard that before. It wasn't from the call. It was from inside of the trunk when I'd circled the car last night. Just 3 faint thuds. I told myself it was the engine rattling, but it wasn't. I sat back, trying to breathe evenly. The tech was talking, saying something about tracing the signal, but her voice felt far away. I asked where the call came from. She shook her head. "It bounced between towers. No fixed point. Closest we can place it is within a 1-mile radius of your location." A 1-mile radius. That meant the call came from somewhere near that car. Maybe from it. The thought made me sick. I asked her to make me a copy of the file, and I left early that day. I told my supervisor I wasn't feeling well, which wasn't a lie. When I got home, I played the recording again. I needed to hear it alone, without anyone else breathing beside me. I put in my earbuds, sat at the kitchen table, and hit play. This time, I noticed details I hadn't before. Small things, background noises you don't catch on the first listen. There was the rain, steady and close. Then faint scraping, like someone dragging something metallic across concrete. And right before the call cut out, right before the burst of static, I heard a whisper that didn't sound like a child. It was deeper, slower, almost right against the microphone. I turned the volume all the way up, heart pounding in my chest. It said just one word, listen, then silence. I ripped the earbuds out. The house felt too quiet, too still. Outside it had started to rain. Real rain this time, soft and steady like in the recording. I stood by the window for a long time, watching it streak down the glass. The sound matched perfectly. Every drop, every rhythm. For a second, I thought I heard something underneath it. A low hum, almost like an engine idling far off in the distance. I told myself I was just hearing things. I turned on the TV, trying to drown it out. But even over the noise, that faint sound remained, deep and constant, like a memory that refused to fade. That night, I dreamed about the car. It was parked in the same place. Headlights on, engine running. But this time I could see inside. A small figure sat in the driver's seat, hands pressed against the steering wheel, head turned slightly toward me. When I got closer, I saw that it wasn't a child. It was something else wearing a child's face. Its eyes were hollow, like the glass from a broken headlight, and it whispered in the same distorted tone from the recording. Listen. I woke up gasping, heart hammering. The room was dark except for the red blink of the alarm clock. 3:17 a.m. For a moment, I thought I heard rain again, but when I looked outside, the sky was clear. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. No caller ID. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. At first, nothing, just faint static. Then, barely audible, a child's voice. Please help me. The same words from the recording. The same trembling tone. I couldn't speak. Couldn't even breathe. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps. Exactly the same rhythm. And after that, silence. When I checked the call log, there was nothing. No number, no record. Just an empty screen. I sat there until morning, staring at the phone, listening to the silence between my breaths. I don't know how to explain what's happening. I keep telling myself it's some cruel coincidence, that maybe the recording triggered something in my head, a trick of memory, of fear. But the part that won't leave me alone is what the voice said right before it ended. That low whisper, that one word. Because when I played the recording again this morning, using my phone instead of the station copy, I swear the voice wasn't saying listen anymore. It said my name. I didn't sleep much after that night. Every sound in the house started to feel wrong. The creak of the floorboards, the refrigerator hum, even the way the wind pressed against the windows. It all sounded like static, like the kind that sits between words on a tape. I kept thinking about the call, the rain, the voice, and the way it had said my name. By the next shift, I convinced myself it was a coincidence. Maybe someone in dispatch was messing around, or maybe the audio was picking up interference. It happens sometimes. Signals crossing, old calls bleeding into new ones. There's always an explanation. At least, that's what I told myself when I walked back into the patrol center. The place felt quieter than usual that night. Most of the guys were out on traffic detail, and the storm outside had started to roll in heavy. I liked nights like that. The sound of rain on the roof made everything feel small, like the world was folding on itself. I sat down at my desk, checked my gear, and started logging calls. For a few hours, it was normal. Minor accidents, noise complaints, a welfare check or two, just a rhythm of routine. Then, around 2 in the morning, the radio crackled. It wasn't a call from dispatch, just open static. Unit 14, come in. I said, thinking it was a patrol car with a stuck mic. No response, just a faint hiss, like someone breathing through the line. I waited a few seconds before switching frequencies. The static followed. Same pitch, same pattern. I leaned closer to the speaker. Control, you getting interference on channel 3? Silence. Then, through the static, soft, almost gentle, a voice whispered, 479, my badge number. I froze. The whisper was so faint that for a moment I wasn't sure I'd heard it right. I adjusted the volume, turned the dial slightly, and it came again. 479. Each number drawn out, deliberate. My throat went dry. Who is this? I said. No answer. Then a faint click, and the line went dead. I sat there, staring at the radio like it might explain itself. Maybe it was feedback from dispatch. Maybe someone on another channel was reading something out loud. But no one uses badge numbers over the air like that. It's not protocol. Still, I tried to shake it off. 5 minutes later, the radio hissed again. This time, there was no voice, just the sound of rain. It was soft, steady, hitting something metallic. It shouldn't have been possible. The scanner doesn't pick up weather noise. I turned down the volume, but the rain grew louder, and then I heard it. Something else beneath the rain. Knocking. 3 soft knocks. Exactly the same rhythm as the ones from the recording. That was enough for me. I grabbed my jacket and went outside to check the patrol cars, thinking maybe one of the guys had left the transmitter running, but the lot was empty. My car sat alone under the yellow glow of the streetlight, rainwater pooling around its tires. I got inside, shut the door, and turned the ignition. The wipers dragged across the glass, pushing streaks of rain into blurred lines of light. The radio hissed again. I turned the volume down, then off completely. But even then, I could swear I still heard it. The faint whisper buried somewhere in the static. I drove. Sometimes movement helps. You can trick your brain into believing that if you just keep going, the fear will stay behind you. I took the highway out past the quarry, the same road where I found that car. The rain made everything shimmer. Streetlights bent and rippled across the wet asphalt, like reflections on a broken mirror. After a few miles, the signal on the radio flickered back to life. At first, just static, then soft and distant. For 7-9, I gripped the wheel tighter. Stop it, I said under my breath. Just stop. But the voice didn't stop. It whispered again, lower this time, closer, like it was sitting in the seat beside me. Mile 6. That's what it said. 2 words. Mile 6. I didn't even realize I'd turned off the highway until I saw the sign. A small green marker on the side of the road, half covered in mud. Mile 6. The same number. I slowed the car. The rain had turned into a fine mist now, barely visible in the headlights. Everything felt too quiet. I sat there, engine idling, radio silent. Then the whisper came again, right through the speaker this time, not the scanner. Come back. I looked at the radio like it might catch fire. The voice wasn't Child's anymore. It was older now. Flat, tired, familiar. My own. It was my voice. Come back. I hit the power switch, killing the sound, but the words didn't stop. They echoed inside my head, looping until I couldn't tell where the voice ended and my thoughts began. I don't remember how long I sat there. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 50. At some point, I noticed a faint light through the trees, small, flickering, like a reflection from a headlight. I thought maybe another car had gone off the road, so I stepped out, flashlight in hand. The rain had stopped completely now. The air was still heavy with that wetter smell. As I got closer, I realized the light wasn't a headlight. It was a glow from a phone screen. A cracked phone lying face up in the mud. The same model as the one I'd found on the seat of that car. I picked it up. The screen was shattered, the battery icon blinking red. But before it died, a notification flashed across the display. One new voicemail. The sender line was blank. I pressed play. For a few seconds, just rain. Then, please help me. The same child's voice from a 911 call. Then my voice, layered beneath it, whispering the same thing back. Please help me. And then, the sound of 3 knocks. The phone died. I just stood there, holding it, staring into the dark trees. There was no movement, no sound, just the soft hum of my car's engine behind me. Steady and low, that hum, the same one from the recording. I turned around slowly. The driver's side door was open. I could have sworn I closed it. I stepped closer, shining the flashlight through the window. The car was empty. Then I heard it faint behind me for 7-9. I turned, but there was nothing there. Just rain-soaked asphalt and a long stretch of highway disappearing into fog. I didn't go back to the station that night. I drove straight home, locked the doors, and turned off every light in the house. But the thing about silence is, it's never really silent. Once you've heard something you weren't supposed to, it leaves an echo, a memory that keeps whispering long after the sound is gone. That's what it feels like now. Every time the radio crackles, every time I hear rain, every time I pass that green mile marker, I feel it, that presence, that voice. It's not random interference. It's not a bad connection. It knows my name. It knows my number. And it's waiting for me to answer. I didn't go back to the station for 2 days. I told them I was sick, that I needed rest. And maybe I did. I hadn't slept right since the night on mile 6. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear that whisper, my badge number, over and over again, cutting through the dark. The thing is, when you've been in this line of work long enough, your mind learns to fill silence with noise. You hear echoes of old calls, voices you try to forget. But this felt different. It wasn't memory. It was something alive. Something that knew I was listening. On the 3rd day, I went back in. I needed to feel normal again, even if it was fake. The shift was quiet, too quiet. I could tell the others were trying not to bring it up. The incident report about the empty car was already archived. The phone, the voice, everything. Nobody mentioned it. Maybe they didn't believe it. Maybe they just didn't want to. I was halfway through my paperwork when the night supervisor called me over. "Hey," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "You still had the dash cam running that night on Route 16, right?" I nodded slowly. He held up a small hard drive, pulled it from your cruiser. "Thought you want to take a look." For a second, I just stared at it. Part of me didn't want to touch it. The other part couldn't help it. I took the drive to one of the side offices, plugged it in, and opened the folder marked Patrol _0416. The first few clips were routine. Highway lights, empty stretches of road, the occasional passing truck. But then I saw the timestamp. 2:09 a.m. The same time the radio whispered my badge number. I clicked play. The camera showed the view from my dashboard. Rain streaking across the windshield. Wipers dragging back and forth in a tired rhythm. The road was empty. For a long moment, nothing happened. Just the low hum of the engine and the hiss of rain against metal. Then, about 20 seconds in, something flickered at the edge of the frame. It looked like movement, just a blur of pale light crossing through the beam of the headlights. I rewound, slowed it down, played it again. The shape was small, thin, and whatever it was walking backward. I paused the video and leaned closer. The image was grainy, the rain distorting everything, but I could make out a silhouette, small shoulders, thin arms, bare legs. It moved stiffly, like its joints weren't bending right. It was drenched, soaked from head to toe, clothes clinging to its skin, and it was walking backward across the highway, head tilted down like it was listening to something only it could hear. I felt a pulse of cold run through me. The clip ended abruptly, right before it reached the other side of the road. I tried scrubbing forward, but the next few seconds were just static. Then, faintly, I heard it, through the static. There was a sound, like someone tapping on glass. 3 slow knocks. I froze. The same rhythm. Always the same rhythm. I didn't want to watch anymore, but I couldn't look away. I kept scrubbing through the footage, my fingers shaking, until I found another clip a few minutes later. This time, the camera was pointed at the empty road again. The rain had stopped. The fog was thicker now, swallowing the light from the headlights. And then I saw it, something standing in the middle of the lane. Still, perfectly still. It was facing away from the car, shoulders hunched, water dripping from its hair. I turned up the audio, and that's when I heard it, the faint whisper under the hum of the engine. It wasn't words at first, just the sound of someone breathing. Then it said, "For 7-9, my badge number." The same whisper from the scanner. I paused the footage, heart pounding. I didn't remember seeing anything that night. I hadn't stopped the car. I hadn't seen anyone standing in the road. So what was this? I zoomed in, trying to make sense of the shape. The camera adjusted slightly, and for a second, the head turned just enough for the light to catch half a face. A small, pale face. Eyes too wide, mouth open like it was caught mid-breath. But the worst part wasn't the expression. It was a realization that the face looked familiar. It looked like the missing child from the 911 call. I felt my throat close. I tried skipping ahead, but the footage kept freezing, the image glitching in short bursts of static and white noise. Then, right before the feed cut out completely, there was one last frame. The figure was closer now, right up against the hood of the car, hands pressed against the glass. And it wasn't walking backward anymore. It was facing me. I slammed the laptop shut. The sound of it echoed too loudly in the empty office. I sat there, breathing hard, trying to convince myself it was a trick of the light, a camera glitch, anything but what it looked like. After a while, I opened it again. The folder was still there, but when I clicked on the file, it said corrupted. All of it. Every clip, like it had erased itself. I leaned back, staring at the screen. That's when I noticed a reflection. In the dark glass of the monitor, behind my own face, something small moved across the room. I turned fast, but the room was empty. Still, I could feel it. That presence. It was like the air had weight pressing against my skin. I packed up the hard drive and went to the supervisor's office. Told him the footage was damaged, that there wasn't anything useful on it. He didn't ask questions. I think he could tell I didn't want to talk. On the drive home, I kept replaying that image in my head. The small figure walking backward through the rain, its head tilted down, whispering my number. The sound of my wipers matched the rhythm of its steps. Back and forth, back and forth. And every now and then, I'd see a flicker of movement in my headlights, just at the edge of vision. Something small, drenched. I didn't look directly at it. I couldn't. When I got home, I left the laptop on the passenger seat. I didn't want to bring it inside. It felt wrong, like it was carrying something I didn't understand. But later that night, when I finally sat down in the dark of my living room, the silence started to twist. It always starts small, like the static before a call connects. Then, faintly I heard it again. The tapping. 3 knocks. From outside near the driveway. I went to the window. Slowly, my breath held tight in my chest. Through the rain-blurred glass, I could just barely make out the shape of my patrol car under the streetlight. Something was standing beside it. Something small. It wasn't moving, just standing there, head tilted up toward the house. I blinked, and it was gone. The rain stopped an hour later, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure walking backward across the road, the water running down its face, lips moving like it was trying to speak. And somewhere, beneath all that static, I could still hear the faint hum of the engine from that night. The same one I'd heard on the tape. The same one that hasn't stopped since. The rain came down harder that night than I'd ever seen it. It started just after sunset. Soft at first, tapping against the roof like fingertips, but by midnight, it was coming down in sheets. The kind of rain that drowns sound, that makes the world feel smaller, suffocating. I was back on patrol that night. I shouldn't have been. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten properly in days. But staying home was worse. At least in the cruiser, with the engine humming and the radio crackling, I could pretend everything was still normal. They'd reassign me to the back roads near the quarry, the same area where I'd found that car, where I'd heard the voice. Part of me thought they were testing me, seeing if I'd break. But another part of me, some quiet, restless part, wanted to go back. Like maybe if I faced it again, I could prove to myself it wasn't real. Around 1:30, dispatch came over the radio. Unit 479, heavy flooding on Route 18. Check the east turnoff, report back. Even hearing my badge number made my chest tighten now. But I confirmed and drove. The rain had turned the road into a river of black glass. My headlights just barely cut through it, reflecting off the water in wide, trembling bands. Every few minutes, the wipers would drag across the windshield, groaning like tired lungs. The farther I drove, the quieter it got. The storm swallowed everything. No wind, no thunder, just the hiss of rain and the sound of tires pushing through shallow water. That's when I started hearing it. At first, I thought it was a radio again, just faint distortion, maybe interference from the weather. But it wasn't static. It was crying, soft, distant, somewhere beyond the road. I slowed the car, rolled down the window. The rain hit my arm instantly, cold and sharp, but beneath it, I could still hear the sound. A child's cry. It was coming from the tree line. I grabbed my flashlight, radioed in. Dispatch! This is 479. I've got possible stranded civilians near mile 10, east turnoff. I'm checking it out. No response. I tried again, but all I got was a burst of static. I told myself it was a storm messing with the signal. Clipped the radio back to my belt and stepped out. The cold hit me like a wall. My boot sank an inch into the flooded asphalt. I swung the flashlight toward the trees. Rain fell in thick curtains, blurring everything, but I could still see the faint outline of the forest, dark shapes, dripping branches. And somewhere in there, that crying sound. It wasn't frantic, not like someone in pain. It was soft, rhythmic, almost patient. I started walking. The ground sloped down slightly off the road, and within seconds, the water was up to my ankles. The beam of my flashlight bounced across the undergrowth, catching glints of wet bark and an occasional flash of movement that I told myself was just the rain. The crying got louder. It was close now, maybe 30 feet ahead, behind a cluster of thin birch trees. I called out, "Hey, you need help." The crying stopped. Silence. Just the rain again. I stood there, heart hammering, trying to see through the fog. My flashlight caught on something pale between the trees. Just for a second. Small. Still. "Hello," I said. Then the crying started again. But this time, it wasn't ahead of me. It was behind me. I spun around, light slicing through the mist, but there was nothing there. Just my own boot prints, filling with rain. I felt something cold run down the back of my neck. That sound, it was close now, circling me, echoing through the trees. But the tone had changed. It wasn't a child sob anymore. It was lower, rougher, like someone trying to mimic crying but not quite getting it right. I backed up slowly, eyes on the dark. My radio hissed. For 7-9, the voice was faint, drowned by static. Then another sound, a faint splash somewhere behind the trees. I turned the light that way, and that's when I saw it. A figure, standing just beyond the edge of the beam. Small, drenched, motionless, its head tilted slightly like it was listening. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's okay. I'm here to help." It didn't move. Rain trickled down its face, over its pale skin. Its clothes clung to it, torn and heavy with water. And then, slowly, it began to walk toward me, backward, each step deliberate, smooth, the water rippling around its feet. I took a step back, then another. My radio hissed again, louder this time. "For 7-9, come back." My voice. It was my voice on the line. I froze. The figure stopped moving. Its head turned toward the sound, toward the radio, and for the first time I saw its face, or what was left of it. Its eyes were wide open, but empty, like they'd been washed clean. Its mouth was open too, lips trembling like it was whispering something under the sound of rain. Then it smiled, and I swear I heard it whisper, "Listen." I turned and ran. Branches whipped my face, water splashing around my legs. I stumbled to the mud until I reached the road again, gasping for air. My patrol car was still there, headlights cutting through the storm. I yanked open the door, slammed it shut behind me, and hit the radio. "Dispatch. This is for 7-9. I need backup." Static, then a voice. Not dispatch, a whisper. "You shouldn't have followed me." The lights flickered, the radio died, and then everything went dark. The next thing I remember is waking up. It was still raining, but softer now. The kind of drizzle that feels endless. My head was against the steering wheel, the engine still running. The clock on the dash said 4:12 a.m. I don't know how long I'd been out, but when I looked outside, Something was different. The road was empty. The trees were still, and there were no footprints leading into the woods. None. It was like I'd never gotten out of the car at all. I tried calling dispatch again, but the radio was dead. My phone too. When I finally got back to the station that morning, the supervisor said they'd been trying to reach me for over 2 hours. My cruiser's GPS had gone offline just before 2. They found my car parked on the side of Route 18. Engine still warm, lights on, but no sign of me. That's what the report says. Anyway, I don't remember walking back. I don't remember driving home. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really left those woods. Because lately when it rains, I hear again the crying. Soft at first, like it's far away. Then closer, right outside the window. And every time, I tell myself not to listen, not to go near the sound. But sometimes when it's quiet enough, I think I can hear my own voice calling back. From somewhere out there, past the trees, beneath the rain, it started on a night soaked in thunder. The kind of storm that makes the world feel smaller, like the rain's closing in on you. I was babysitting a boy named Jamie, 7 years old, quiet, polite, a little too polite, maybe. He always said please and thank you, even when he didn't need to. His parents were out celebrating their anniversary. They left around 7, right before the sky split open. I remember his mom laughing, saying, "You'll be fine." He loves company. And then the door shut, and it was just me, the kid, and the sound of rain hammering the roof. The house was big, not mansion big, but it had that echo when you spoke, like it didn't want to sound alive. We spent the first hour watching cartoons. He sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes locked on the TV. I sat on the couch behind him, scrolling through my phone, pretending to laugh at videos while keeping half an eye on him. The thunder rolled again. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. "Do you get scared of storms?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, I like them. They make the house talk." I smiled, trying not to look weirded out. "The house talks, huh?" "Yeah," he said, eyes still on the TV. "You just have to listen real hard. It says your name sometimes." I laughed it off. Kids say weird things all the time. But the way he said it, flat, matter of fact, it stuck with me. By 9, the storm had gotten worse. Wind whistled through the chimney. The rain hit the windows sideways. Jamie turned off the TV and looked at me like he was waiting for something. "Can we play hide and seek?" he asked. I hesitated. I'd been planning to just wait out the night with him asleep on the couch. But his eyes lit up when he asked, like he hadn't had fun in a long time. "All right," I said, "but only one round." "Deal." He grinned and nodded, already running down the hall. I covered my eyes and started counting. 1, 2, 3. The storm groaned outside. The lights flickered again. 4, 5. I heard his small footsteps on the hardwood floor, then silence. 10. Ready or not, here I come. The house was quiet except for the rain. I started down the hallway, checking the first room. The kitchen, empty. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint drip of rain sliding down the window. The dining room next. The chairs were all pushed in neatly, but one, just one, was slightly off-center, like someone had bumped into it. I smiled. Gotcha. But when I crouched to look under the table, it was empty. I checked the laundry room, the bathroom, the coat closet. Nothing. Every few minutes. The thunder would rattle the glass, and the lights would dim like the house was breathing. "Jamie?" I called out, half whispering. "You can come out now." No answer. I tried to listen, like he'd said earlier. The house talks. There was something about the silence that didn't feel empty. It felt held, like someone was waiting with me. Then I heard it. A faint tap, tap, tap from upstairs. I grinned. "You're in trouble now, kid." The staircase creaked under my feet as I climbed. The lights up there were weaker, yellow and tired. The hallway stretched longer than I remembered, like it was being pulled. "Jamie?" I said again. "You better not jump out and scare me." No answer. I checked the first bedroom. Empty. Second room, the parents' room. The bed was neatly made, pillows perfectly fluffed. The storm light flashed through the window, lighting up the mirror across the room. And in that flash, for just a second, I thought I saw someone standing in the reflection. Small, still. I spun around. No one there. "Jamie?" I said, my voice quieter this time. Nothing. Then I heard a giggle. Soft, distant. It came from the hallway. I stepped out and followed the sound. It led me to the end of the hall, to the door of the attic. The string light dangled from the ceiling, and the door was cracked open. I didn't remember it being open earlier. "All right," I called out. "Game's over. You win. Let's go." I waited. Another giggle. This time, closer. I sighed, trying to sound brave. "You're really committed to this, huh?" I climbed the narrow steps into the attic. The air changed the second I got up there, heavy and still, like it hadn't been breathed in for years. The storm sounded muffled, distant. There were boxes everywhere and old furniture covered in sheets. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered as I walked in. "Jamie?" Silence. I walked between the boxes, peeking behind old trunks and dusty curtains. Nothing. Then I noticed a shadow under a large sheet. It looked small, crouched. I smiled in relief. "Found you." I yanked the sheet away. The space was empty. Just a small rocking chair swaying slowly, like it had been nudged. That was when the lights went out. I froze. The bulb above me made one last buzz before dying completely. The attic was swallowed in black. For a long moment, I just stood there, breathing. I told myself not to panic. Power lines probably went down. Happens all the time in storms. But then, something moved behind me. Soft footsteps. Bare feet on wood. "Jamie," I whispered. "Stop it." The sound stopped. I turned on my phone's flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, dust floating in the air like snow. Nothing. I backed toward the stairs. That's when I heard it. A whisper right next to my ear. "Found you?" I spun around. No one there. I ran down the steps, nearly tripping. The house seemed darker now, heavier. Every shadow looked wrong, stretched too long, like they were reaching. "Jamie!" I yelled. "Game's over. Come out right now." I searched every room again, shouting his name until my throat hurt. Nothing. I called his mom. Straight to voicemail. I told myself he was hiding, maybe scared by the thunder. But the longer I searched, the more the house started to feel off. The air felt colder. The corners looked deeper. Even the sound of the rain didn't match the rhythm of the world anymore. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something. A small figure standing at the end of the hallway. I turned my head, and it was gone. But I swear it looked like him. Same height, same outline. Just still. The power flickered once, twice, and came back on. The house buzzed back to life. The fridge, the hum of the lights, the clock ticking. It almost felt normal again. Almost. "Jamie?" I called out softly. "You okay?" A door creaked upstairs. I followed the sound back up, heart pounding. The attic door was open again. This time, the light was on, steady, not flickering. I climbed halfway up and froze. There he was, standing in the middle of the attic, facing away from me. His clothes were the same, his small hands at his sides. "Jamie," I whispered, "what are you doing up here?" He didn't answer, didn't move. The air buzzed with silence. I took one careful step forward. The wood creaked. He turned his head, slow, like it hurt, but it wasn't all the way. Just enough for me to see his face. Only it wasn't him. The skin looked pale, stretched. The mouth was smiling too wide, like it had forgotten how to stop. My throat closed. "Jamie?" The lights flickered once more. Then everything went dark again. When they came back on, the attic was empty. No boy. No sound. Just that small rocking chair moving gently on its own. I searched until the parents came home. I told them everything. Every word, every sound, every second. They didn't believe me, of course. They found him the next morning, in his bed, fast asleep, like nothing ever happened. But when he woke up, he looked at me and smiled. And in that quiet, polite voice, he said, "Want to play again?" It's strange how quiet a house can be after something like that. You start to question every sound, every shadow, even your own breath. I told myself it was just the storm, that I was tired, jumpy, imagining things. But even as the sun started to rise, something in me knew it wasn't over. Jamie's parents thanked me for staying calm. They didn't see the way my hands were shaking when I left. They didn't see how I kept glancing at him, because he kept looking back. He didn't blink much that morning, just stared at me with that too wide smile, the one that didn't belong to him. By the time I got home, I couldn't stop replaying everything. The attic, the voice, the way the light kept flickering like it was alive. I barely slept that day. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that pale face turning toward me in the dark. But I had to go back. They'd already booked me for the next night. I told myself I needed the money. That would be fine. That kids do weird things, and my mind had just filled in the blanks. When I got there, the house felt different. Too still. The storm had passed, but the air inside was heavy, like the walls were holding their breath. Jamie's mom left in a rush again, kissing him on the forehead, handed me a list of emergency numbers and saying, "He's been quiet today, probably tired from the storm." I nodded, smiling like everything was normal, but I could feel him watching me as she pulled out of the driveway. For a while, things were fine. We ate dinner. He barely spoke, just picked at his food. At one point, I noticed his sleeves were wet. I asked him about it. He just shrugged. "The window's open," he said softly. When I checked, it wasn't. By 8:30, he said he was tired and wanted to go to bed early. I tucked him in, turned off the light, and stood there for a second, waiting for him to say something. He didn't, just stared past me at the window. The wind outside was calm, but the curtain kept moving, like something was brushing against it from the other side. I told myself not to look. Not tonight. I went downstairs, sat on the couch, and tried to distract myself with my phone. Around 9, I started hearing things. Little things. Creaks. Faint taps from upstairs. The kind of noises you can almost explain. Almost. I checked the baby monitor. Static. Then, faintly, his voice. Humming. A slow, tuneless sound, like a song with no beginning or end. I stared at the screen. He was sitting upright in bed, head tilted toward the window. The curtain was moving again. I grabbed my phone and called up the stairs. "Jamie, you okay?" No answer. The monitor crackled. Then I heard it, a soft whisper. "Someone's outside." My stomach dropped. I ran up the stairs and pushed open his door. He was lying down now, pretending to be asleep. The window was open, wide. The night air rushed in, cold, damp, carrying that smell of wet leaves and something else. Something metallic. I went to the window and looked out. The yard was empty, just grass slick with rain. I shut it and locked it tight. "Don't open this again," I said, trying to sound firm. "It's not safe." He opened his eyes. "I didn't open it," he whispered. I froze. "Then who did?" He didn't answer. He just turned his face toward the wall. I stood there for a while, just watching him breathe. Then I backed out of the room, closing the door behind me. Downstairs, I tried to calm down. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I texted his mom. "Hey, everything's fine, but I think a window latch might be loose. Just FYI." She didn't reply. I sat there for maybe an hour, listening to the old clock ticking in the hallway. Then I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. Not from upstairs this time. From the kitchen. I stood up slowly, every muscle tight. The sound came again, like fingers on glass. When I stepped into the kitchen, I saw it. The back window. Open. The wind pushed the curtain aside, letting in the cold night air. For a second, I couldn't move. The phone was in my hand, slick with sweat. Then I called 911. The operator's voice was calm, too calm. 911, what's your emergency? I tried to keep my voice steady. I'm babysitting, and I think someone's in the house. The windows keep opening on their own. Okay, she said softly. Stay on the line. Can you confirm your address? I gave it to her, pacing in circles. She typed for a moment. Then she said, "Ma'am, we already have a call logged from that address." I froze. What? When? About 3 minutes ago. I swallowed hard. Who called? A pause. Then it came from a child's bedroom. For a second, the world went completely silent. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. "Are you sure?" I whispered. "Yes, ma'am," she said. "Is there a child in the house?" I didn't answer. I just dropped the phone and ran upstairs. The monitor was still hissing static. His door was half open. I pushed it slowly. The bed was empty. The window open again. Curtains fluttering like someone had just climbed through. "Jamie!" I shouted. No answer. I ran to the window and looked out. The yard was dark. The swing set glistening with rain. Then I saw him, standing by the tree line, barefoot. Still, I ran downstairs, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear myself think. When I threw open the back door, the cold hit me like a wall. "Jamie!" I shouted again. He didn't move. I stepped out onto the grass, my feet sinking into the mud. The night air was heavy, full of that strange hum you hear right before lightning strikes. When I got closer, I realized something was off. He wasn't facing the woods. He was facing the house. His eyes were open, blank. His mouth hung slightly open, like he was listening to something. "Jamie," I said softly, "come back inside, okay?" Nothing. Then, so faint I almost didn't hear it, he whispered, "It's in my room." I turned. The light from his window was flickering. On, off, on again. When I looked back, he was gone. I ran to where he'd been standing. The grass was pressed down, wet footprints leading back toward the house. But not small ones. Not his. I backed away slowly, my body screaming to run, to move, to do something. But the house was glowing faintly. Just his room. Just that window. I stepped inside, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The air was freezing now, thick and sharp in my lungs. I climbed the stairs one by one. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached his door, it was open wider than before. Inside, the room looked wrong. The shadows didn't move right. The walls looked too long, too thin. And the curtains, they were pulled outward, like something had dragged them through the window. My voice cracked. "Jamie?" From behind me. Down the hall, a soft voice said, "I'm right here." I turned. He was standing in the doorway of the parents' room, dripping wet, eyes wide and empty. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "You shouldn't have called." "What?" I whispered. He tilted his head. "They heard you." The hallway light flickered once, then went out completely. I don't remember what happened next. I must have blacked out. When I came to, it was morning. The parents were home, standing over me, their faces pale with confusion and fear. Jamie was asleep in his bed again, peaceful, like nothing ever happened. They told me the back door was wide open when they got home. They asked me why I'd called 911. I didn't know what to say. I checked the phone later. There were 2 calls logged, one from me and one from their house phone, made exactly 3 minutes before mine. The recording was short, just a child's voice whispering into the receiver. The window's open. It started with static, not the kind you hear on the radio or the TV when it loses signal. This was softer, like whispering underwater. I remember it was just after midnight. My husband was working a night shift, and the house felt too big without him. The baby monitor sat on my nightstand, its tiny red light glowing in the dark. My daughter, Lily, was only 2. She'd been restless that week, teething nightmares as usual. That night, though, she'd fallen asleep fast. Too fast. I was halfway through a book when I heard it. A faint hiss through the monitor. At first, I thought it was interference from my phone or the Wi-Fi, but then it changed. It wasn't random static anymore. It was a rhythm, like breathing. I froze, holding my breath, listening. Then, under the noise, I heard it. A voice. Small, soft, but clear enough to make my stomach twist. Help me? It sounded like Lily, but not quite. The tone was the same, that sweet, hesitant voice she used when she wanted something. But this one, it sounded older, like her voice stretched out, more mature, more tired. Help me? I sat up in bed, staring at the monitor. The screen was dark, no movement. I whispered, Lily, even though I knew she couldn't hear me. The voice didn't come again, just static. I tried to tell myself it was a dream, that I'd misheard it. Maybe it was a neighbor's baby monitor, picking up cross-frequency interference. That happened, right? Still, I went to check. Her room was dim, lit only by the glow from the nightlight shaped like a moon. She was asleep in her crib, one hand tucked under her cheek, breathing soft and even. Everything looked normal. I stood there for a long time, just watching her chest rise and fall. Then I reached for the monitor on her dresser, the transmitter, and made sure it was working properly. The red light flickered steady. Fine. I went back to bed. But I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it again. That voice buried in the static. Older, broken, calling for help. The next morning, I told my husband. He laughed, said it was probably interference or a dream, but he didn't hear it. He didn't feel it. That night, I turned the monitor off. I couldn't stand the sound anymore. But at around 2 a.m., I woke up to something else. A faint knocking. Not on the door, not on the window, through the baby monitor. I stared at it. Still off, still dark. And yet, the sound was there. Slow, deliberate knocks. 3 of them. I turned it back on. Static again. And under it, the breathing. Help me. My chest tightened. I whispered, Who are you? For a second, there was silence. Then, in the same small voice, It's me, Mommy. It felt like the world stopped, because that's what Lily calls me, Mommy. I sat frozen, every instinct screaming to run, but I couldn't. I just stared at the monitor, waiting for it to light up, to show me something, anything, but it didn't, only static. I ran to her room. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. She was sitting up in her crib, eyes open, staring at the corner of the room. Lily? I whispered. She turned toward me slowly. Mommy? Her voice was small, confused. I ran to her, scooped her up, and held her close. She was warm, sleepy, real. What are you doing awake? She rubbed her eyes. She was calling you. The air went cold. Who? She pointed at the monitor. The other me. I felt my stomach drop. She said it like it was nothing, like she was just telling me what she saw. The other you? I asked, trying not to let my voice shake. She nodded. She said she stuck. I didn't ask anything else. I just held her until she fell back asleep. Then I unplugged the monitor, set it face down, and told myself I'd throw it out in the morning. But I didn't, because when I woke up, the monitor wasn't where I left it. It was back on the nightstand, plugged in, light on. That night, I couldn't stop staring at it. I told myself not to touch it, not to turn it on again. But around midnight, the static came back. Even though the power light was off, that IT filled the room. Soft at first, then louder. Help me. This time, it was followed by crying. Not a baby's cry, a woman's. Broken, exhausted, like someone who'd been crying for hours. Please, help me. I couldn't take it. I turned the monitor on, desperate to see something, to make sense of it. The camera flickered to life. The screen was full of snow, gray and moving, but through it, faint shapes, something shifting near the crib, a figure crouched low. I blinked and it was gone. Then the sound stopped. Silence filled the house. I ran to Lily's room again. She was asleep, peaceful, but something was off. Her handprints were smeared on the inside of the window. Not fingerprints, but whole palms, like she'd pressed against the glass from her crib. Except her crib was too far from the window for her to reach. I checked the lock. It was still sealed tight. I stepped back, looking around, and that's when I noticed it. The monitor camera, the one I'd unplugged earlier, was pointed toward me. It shouldn't have been. I picked it up. The battery light was dead, No power at all. But when I looked into the lens, I saw my reflection. For a split second, I thought I saw a movement behind me, like someone standing in the doorway. I turned, but the hall was empty. That night, I barely slept. Over the next few days, the static came and went. Sometimes I'd hear faint laughter. Sometimes whispers I couldn't make out. Every time it happened, Lily would wake up crying. Always around midnight. Always saying the same thing. She wanted to come in. I started recording the sounds. My phone picked up nothing. Just silence. But I heard it. I know I did. The last night I used that monitor, the voice changed. It didn't sound like Lily anymore. It sounded like me. Same tone. Same pitch. Just hollow. "Help me," it said again. "Please. She's coming." I couldn't move. My throat went dry. And then I heard footsteps. Faint, coming from Lily's room. I ran. The monitor screen lit up just as I reached the door. For one heartbeat, I saw something on the feed. Not her. Not me. A shadow standing over the crib, its head bent low, like it was whispering to her. I burst in, grabbed my daughter, and turned on the light. Nothing there. Just the cold air and that faint smell of rain, even though the window was still shut. I threw the monitor away the next morning. But sometimes, late at night, when the house gets too quiet, I swear I can still hear it. That faint crackle of static. That soft, familiar voice whispering from somewhere far away. "Mommy, help me." The police didn't believe me. They never do. When I told them what I'd heard through the baby monitor, that strange, older version of my daughter's voice calling for help, they looked at me like I was sleep-deprived, overworked, unstable. Maybe I was, but that doesn't explain what came next. It was the third night after the voice. I hadn't touched the baby monitor since. I'd thrown it in a kitchen drawer, buried under dish towels and batteries. Still, the memory of that voice wouldn't leave me alone. Every time I walked past Lily's room, I felt it, a pull, a pressure, like the air was thicker near her door. The house was quiet, except for her soft breathing through the cracked door. She always wanted it open just a little. She said the moonlight keeps the bad things out. I used to think that was cute. Now it makes my skin crawl. That morning, I got a call from the police station. A calm woman's voice. "Mrs. Turner, this is Officer Reyes. I wanted to follow up about your earlier report." I hesitated. "About the baby monitor?" "Yes," she said. "You mentioned you heard a voice saying, 'Help me.' You also said you thought you heard someone knocking through the device." I could hear her typing. Then she asked, "You also mentioned calling 911 that night, correct?" My chest tightened. "Yes." The line went dead before I could finish. I thought maybe you traced it. There was a pause. Then she said something that didn't make sense. "Ma'am, we don't have any record of a 911 call from your number." I frowned. "That's not possible. I use my cell phone." I remember hearing the dispatcher's voice. She sighed gently, like she'd had this conversation before. "We checked your number twice. There's no record in the system." I didn't know what to say. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there staring at my phone. I opened the call log. There it was. Call to 911. Duration, 2 minutes and 13 seconds. I pressed it, but instead of the usual tone, I heard something else, a faint click, then static, just like the baby monitor. I dropped the phone. The sound cut off immediately. I tried again. Nothing but the dial tone. That's when I started thinking. What if it wasn't the police line I reached that night? What if it was something else? Later that evening, my husband came home early. I didn't tell him everything. Just enough. He's a logical man, an engineer. He believes everything has an explanation. He went to check the drawer where I'd stashed the monitor. When he turned it over, he frowned. The power light was on. "Did you plug this back in?" he asked. I shook my head. He held it closer. It's showing a signal. There was a faint buzz, barely audible. Then voices, but not ours. At first, it sounded like a radio frequency, a far-off conversation. Then a clearer voice broke through, female, trembling. "Help me, she's here." We both froze. "Is this recorded?" he asked. I whispered, "No, it's live." He tapped the button on the back to reset it. The sound stopped, but when the monitor powered back on, it didn't return to the live camera feed. Instead, a timestamp appeared on the screen. 2:17 a.m., June 9, 2035. I blinked, confused. "That's not right," I said. "That's 10 years from now." He tried to change it, but the buttons wouldn't respond. The screen flickered once, then froze. He unplugged it, frustrated. "It's just a glitch," he said. "The clock battery's probably fried." But I couldn't stop staring at the date. June 9th, 10 years ahead. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what I'd heard on the phone, what the officer said, no record, no trace. I got up around 3 a.m., careful not to wake him, and checked on Lily. She was sleeping peacefully, but her nightlight was off, and the baby monitor, the one he'd unplugged, was sitting on the floor by her crib. It was on. The light glowed faintly red. I picked it up with shaking hands. The timestamp was still frozen, 2:17 a.m., June 9th, 2035. But now the screen showed something else. A faint outline, like someone standing near the window. At first, I thought it was a reflection. But when I turned to look, the window was empty, only rain streaking down the glass. I looked back at the screen. The figure was closer now, just behind the crib. My breath caught. I whispered, "Who's there?" The audio crackled. A low, distorted voice came through. "You called." The light flickered and the screen went black. I dropped the monitor and ran to the crib. Lily stirred, rubbed her eyes, but didn't wake up. I scooped her up and carried her into our bedroom, clutching her tight. My husband woke to find me shaking, crying, holding our daughter like she'd vanish if I let go. I told him everything. He didn't argue this time. He just listened. Then he said quietly, "We'll call the police again in the morning." But when they came, there was nothing to show them. The monitor wouldn't turn on at all now. The timestamp was gone. Still, I couldn't get that number out of my head. 2035. Why that date? I tried to forget. For a few days, life returned to normal, or something close to it. But every night at the same time, 2:17 a.m., something woke me. Sometimes it was a faint knocking. Sometimes the sound of the monitor clicking on. Once, it was my own phone buzzing on the nightstand. A missed call. No number. Just a word. Unknown. When I played the voicemail, there was nothing but static. And then, faintly, "Mommy?" The same voice. Older. I dropped the phone. The next morning, I checked the voicemail again, but it was gone. Deleted automatically, it said. I started wondering if maybe this wasn't a haunting. Maybe it was something else. Something trying to warn me. I looked up the date again, June 9th, 2035. 10 years from now, exactly. I found an old notebook and started writing everything down. Every sound, every call, every time the monitor flickered on. It always happened at the same minute, 2:17. I checked Lily's birth certificate one night. Her time of birth was 2:17 a.m. My blood went cold. That's when I realized maybe it wasn't random. Maybe the interference wasn't from outside. Maybe it was coming from her. That night, I dreamed of her older, 10 years older, standing by the same window, rain pouring behind her. She looked just like me when I was a teenager. Same eyes, same scar on her lip. She was crying. "Help me," she whispered again. "She's coming." I woke up gasping, my chest tight, tears on my face. And the baby monitor was on again. The timestamp read June 9th, 2035, 2:18 a.m., 1 minute later than before. The screen showed the same window. Only this time, the reflection in the glass wasn't the room. It was a face. Mine. Older. Tired. Staring back at me like I'd been standing there for years, waiting for myself to notice. Then the screen went black again. I haven't slept since. The police think I'm losing it. My husband stopped arguing. He just keeps unplugging things when I'm not looking. But I know what I saw, and I know that somehow, 10 years from now, something happens in that room. Every night since, the rain sounds louder, the air heavier, and sometimes when I check on Lily, I catch her whispering in her sleep, words I can't quite hear, except one, soon. The morning it happened, the rain finally stopped. For the first time in weeks, the air didn't feel heavy. The house was quiet. No static, no flickering lights, no strange voices in the monitor. I almost believed it was over. Lily was eating cereal at the table, swinging her little legs on the chair, humming a song from her cartoons. I remember thinking how normal it all felt, how good it felt to just breathe again. Then the knock came. It was soft at first, almost polite, but something in the rhythm made me uneasy. I opened the door and saw a man standing there, mid-40s maybe, neatly dressed. A detective's badge clipped to his belt. "Mrs. Turner?" he asked. "Yes." He nodded slightly, his face unreadable. "I'm Detective Harlan. I'd like to ask you a few questions, if that's all right." My stomach dropped. "About what?" "About a missing person," he said quietly, "from this neighborhood." I hesitated, but let him in. Lily peeked from behind my leg, shy, clutching her spoon. He smiled gently at her, then turned to me. "Do you mind if we talk in private?" I sent her upstairs with her tablet. She didn't argue. When I came back, he had already opened a thin manila folder on the kitchen counter. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a photocopy of an old missing poster. A little girl's face smiled up at me. Freckles, light hair, big, curious eyes. The caption read, "Missing, Lily Turner, age 6. I stared at it, frozen. My throat closed. That's my daughter's name," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "Yes, I know." I looked closer. The photo wasn't Lily. Not exactly, but close enough that it made my skin crawl. Same smile, same eyes. The poster was dated May 2025. 10 years ago, I said. He exhaled. "That's right. The girl went missing from this street, just 3 houses down." I looked out the window. Across the road, the old Harris house sat abandoned, its windows boarded, grass knee-high. No one had lived there since before we moved in. I'd always assumed it was just another foreclosure. He slid a second photo across the counter. The same child, but older, maybe 8 or 9. This was taken 2 years later. It was part of a follow-up investigation. I couldn't speak. "She was never found," he continued. "The case went cold. But the reason I'm here, Mrs. Turner," he hesitated, "is because last week our system logged a new 911 call related to that case." My chest tightened. He flipped to another page, a printed record of a call. Caller ID, private line. Audio status, distorted/incomplete transmission. Location, 327 Maple Lane. My address. I didn't call anyone, I said quickly. He looked at me, calm but serious. "We traced the signal. It originated from your house." I felt dizzy. "When?" He glanced at his notes. "June 9th, 2:17 a.m. I nearly dropped my cup. The timestamp. He noticed the color drain from my face. "Does that time mean something to you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mind was spinning, connecting everything. The monitor, the voice, the static, the date. He studied me quietly. "You said your daughter's name is Lily?" I nodded, numb. He looked toward the stairs. "Would you mind if I met her?" I hesitated. My first instinct was no, but something in his voice, cautious, almost gentle, made me nod. "Lily?" I called. She came down slowly, her small feet padding against the steps. She looked up at him with wide eyes. He smiled. "Hi there. I'm Mr. Harlan." She said nothing, just stood beside me, holding onto my arm. He crouched slightly to her level. "You're 6, right?" She nodded. "Do you like it here?" She nodded again, but quieter this time. Then he said, "Do you remember where you lived before?" Her little brow furrowed. "Here," she said. He glanced up at me. "Always?" "Yes," I said. "She was born here, in the hospital on June 9th, he finished softly. I froze. "How did you know that?" He straightened, closing the folder. It's in the file. He gave me a long look. Mrs. Turner, are you sure your daughter was born in 2025? I frowned. What do you mean, sure? Of course I'm sure. He slid the poster toward me again. Because this girl, the one who disappeared 10 years ago, her birthday was June 9th, 2025. Same name, same street. My hands were trembling. He continued, I don't know what this means yet, but if anything strange happens, any calls, any sounds, please let me know immediately. I nodded weakly. After he left, I locked the door and sank to the floor. My whole body was shaking. It couldn't be a coincidence. It just couldn't. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I went through her baby box. The one with her hospital bracelet, first blanket, the birth certificate. The paper looked normal. Name, Lillian Turner. Date of birth, June 9th, 2025. Mother, Emily Turner. But something caught my eye. The ink was faded, not just old, but wrong, like it had been printed, wiped, and printed again. And the hospital's name at the bottom, St. Clair Memorial, was crossed out. We didn't even live near St. Clair when she was born. I whispered to myself, No. The baby monitor blinked from the corner. I hadn't plugged it in. I crept toward it, heart hammering. The screen flickered on, but instead of her crib, I saw the kitchen and the missing poster, pinned to the fridge, except it wasn't there. Not physically. I ran to check. The fridge was empty, spotless, but on the monitor it stayed the same image of the smiling girl. Then, slowly, the picture began to move. The girl in the poster blinked, her head tilted, almost curious. I whispered, What do you want from me? The static deepened. Then the child's voice came through. Find me? The monitor went black. I backed away, clutching the counter for balance. My phone buzzed a new voicemail. Unknown number. I played it. It was the same faint static, the same soft voice. Only this time, she said something different. She's not yours. I dropped the phone. I don't know how long I stood there before I moved. I went to Lily's room and sat beside her bed, watching her breathe, memorizing every sound. Her face, so calm, so familiar, didn't look like a stranger's. But now, I couldn't stop wondering. What if the detective was right? What if she wasn't my Lily? The next morning, I called St. Clair Memorial to ask about her birth record. The woman on the phone said there was no record of any Lily Turner born that year. No record of me either. I hung up before she could ask questions. I turned toward the living room, and that's when I saw it, a folded piece of paper on the floor by the front door. I hadn't noticed it before. When I opened it, my hands went cold. It was the missing poster. The same one from file. Same face. But this time, someone had written something across the bottom in pencil. You already found her. I'd stopped sleeping by then. Every night I told myself I wouldn't look, that I'd just turn off the lights and ignore the monitor completely. But when the clock crept past 2 a.m., I'd find myself sitting at the edge of my bed, eyes fixed on that little red light across the room. It always came back on. No matter where I hid it, no matter how many times I unplugged it, it found a way. That night, the storm came back, harder than before. The wind howled through the trees, and the house creaked like it was breathing. The rain against the windows sounded like 1,000 small hands tapping to be let in. Lily was asleep beside me. I'd stopped letting her sleep in her own room after what happened with the poster. I told myself it was temporary, that she was just scared of the thunder. But deep down, I think I was the one who was scared. The thunder rolled again. Then the monitor clicked on. I froze. The glow filled the dark, casting a faint light on the wall. I didn't want to look, but my eyes moved anyway. The screen was fuzzy, snowing static for a few seconds. Then it cleared. It wasn't Lily's room this time. It looked older, the furniture rearranged, the wallpaper faded. But it was still her room, just different. And standing near the window was a girl. Not the baby I knew. Not 6-year-old Lily. She looked maybe 16. Same hair, same eyes. But older, pale, tired. She was crying. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. My chest tightened as I leaned closer. She looked up, straight at the camera, and whispered something I couldn't hear. The audio hissed, then cleared, and her voice came through. "Mom!" I stopped breathing. It was her, the same voice I'd heard weeks ago, older, desperate. "Mom, it's raining again." My throat felt dry. I couldn't speak. I just watched her, terrified to even blink. She looked behind her, toward the window. Lightning flashed outside, reflecting in her eyes. Then she whispered, "Don't let me go outside." The words barely came out, like she was afraid someone else would hear. I whispered back, even though I knew she couldn't hear me, "You're safe, baby. You're right here." She shook her head violently. "No, I'm not. She keeps coming when it rains. She says I have to go with her." The static deepened, swallowing her voice for a moment. I could see her mouth still moving, her hands pressed against the window glass from inside. Then I heard it, a faint tapping sound, not from the monitor, but from the real window in my room. Tap, 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 slow, deliberate. Lily stirred beside me. I forced myself to look. Rain streaked down the glass, but behind it, for just a second, I thought I saw a reflection, a woman's silhouette. I blinked and it was gone. I turned back to the monitor. The older Lily was close to the camera now, eyes wide, tears streaming down her cheeks. She says, "I don't belong here," she whispered, "that I was taken." I could barely form words. "Who says that?" The sound crackled. The feed glitched. Then a faint, whispering voice bled through the static. Another woman's voice. "She's mine." I flinched. My whole body went cold. The older Lily screamed. The screen went dark. I grabbed the monitor, shaking it. "No, no, come back." Nothing. Just static. The rain outside grew louder, almost deafening. I rushed to the window, heart pounding, but there was nothing there, just water and lightning. And then silence. Not a natural silence, but the kind that eats sound, like the whole world held its breath. I turned around, slowly. The monitor light was off now, completely dead, but my phone, lying on the nightstand, started to vibrate. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. There was no voice at first, just the same static. Then breathing, soft, uneven, like a child trying not to cry. "Mommy?" It was Lily's voice, the younger one, my real Lily. I looked down at her. She was still asleep beside me, peaceful, her small hand curled against her cheek. "Lily?" I whispered. "Where are you?" The breathing grew heavier. "I'm outside." I looked at the window again, at the rain pouring down the glass. "No, baby, you're not outside. You're right here." On the line, her voice trembled. "Then who's in my bed?" The call cut off. I dropped the phone and turned toward the bed, my heart pounding so hard I couldn't hear anything else. Lily was still there, still asleep, but for a moment, I swear her breathing didn't sound right. It was too slow, too deep. I reached out, hand shaking, and touched her shoulder. "Lily?" Her eyes opened. For a second, I thought I was staring at someone else. Her pupils looked darker, her face expressionless. She blinked once, twice, then whispered, "You shouldn't have answered." I stumbled back. "What?" But before I could say another word, she turned over and went back to sleep like nothing had happened. The rest of the night, I sat in the corner of the room, too afraid to move, too afraid to close my eyes. The rain didn't stop until morning. When the sun finally came up, everything looked normal again. The monitor was dark. The phone was silent. Lily woke up cheerful, asking for pancakes. But I couldn't stop staring at her, watching the way she moved, the way she smiled, trying to convince myself it was still her. After breakfast, I checked the call log on my phone. The number was there, but it wasn't from any area code I recognized. It started with numbers I didn't even know existed. +000, and the timestamp, June 9th, 2035, 2:17 a.m. The same as before, the same as every time. That afternoon, I went into her room to clean up her toys. The rain had left the air heavy and still. On her window, faint but visible in the sunlight, were small handprints. They weren't hers. They were bigger, older, and when I wiped them away, I noticed something scratched faintly into the wooden frame beneath the glass. Words written so lightly I almost missed them. Don't let her open the door. I still don't know who wrote it. But now, every time the sky turns gray, every time I hear thunder in the distance, I unplug everything. Every monitor, every phone, every light. And I hold Lily close. Because I know someday soon the storm will come again. And someone, maybe the older version of her, maybe the thing pretending to be her, will be standing outside in the rain, whispering through the static, begging to be let in. And I don't know if I'll be strong enough to keep the door closed. I've worked as a 911 operator for 11 years. I've heard everything. Screaming, sobbing, static, the dull sound of someone trying to speak through blood. After a while, you stop reacting. You learn to keep your voice steady, your breathing calm. You become a wall between chaos and order. That night, though, the wall cracked. It was just after 2 a.m. The shift room was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that hums in your ears. The other operator, Janet, was half asleep at her desk, typing up an old report. The fluorescent lights above us flickered, one of them buzzing like an angry fly. I was finishing my coffee, lukewarm, bitter, when the next call came in. No number, no ID, just unknown caller. Usually, that means a blocked number or someone calling from a burner. It's not uncommon, but there was something different. The line didn't even show the standard prefix code, just blank space where a number should have been. I adjusted my headset and answered the same way I always do. 911, what's your emergency? For a few seconds, nothing, just silence. Then I heard it, a faint, trembling whisper. Hello? The voice was small, childlike, maybe 6, maybe 7 years old. Hi there, I said softly. This is 911. Can you tell me what's wrong? A pause, then the whisper again. I'm lost. My stomach tightened. Okay, that's all right. We'll help you. What's your name, sweetie? The child hesitated, breathing shaky through the receiver. I don't remember. Something about the way they said it made my chest feel cold. Not like they were panicked, more like they were confused. Distant. That's okay, I said, forcing warmth into my tone. Do you know where you are right now? Can you see any signs? Buildings? Lights? Another silence. I could hear soft crunching, like feet shifting through dry leaves. Then the voice said, barely audible, it's dark. I can't see the house anymore. I glanced over at Janet. She was awake now, watching me. I mouthed, child call, and she nodded, starting to trace the line. Okay, listen, I continued. Are you outside? Are there trees around you? Yeah. Do you see a road? No road, the voice said. Then, after a shaky breath, I think I went too far. I scribbled a note, possible missing child, maybe woods or rural area, and gave Janet a look. She frowned, typed something fast, then looked back at me and shook her head. No location data, she mouthed. That was impossible. Even blocked calls show some kind of routing signal. We could usually at least get a cell tower ping. But this one, nothing. I swallowed, forcing my voice to stay calm. Can you tell me what happened? Were you with someone? A long pause. Then the voice, smaller now, said, I was with Mommy, but she's still sleeping. I want to go home, but I can't find it. I froze. Your mom is sleeping? I repeated carefully. Where is she? Back at the car. Can you see the car right now? Another pause. Then, no, I can't find it anymore. The way they said anymore made the hairs on my neck stand up. Janet motioned for me to put on speaker. I did. She started running database checks. I kept talking. Okay, listen to me. Can you tell me what your mommy's name is? A soft rustle. Then, almost like they were thinking hard. Her name is, she said it's Anna. Or Annie. Janet typed faster. No match. All right, sweetheart, can you tell me what your name is? There was another silence, longer this time. When the voice came back, it was almost a whisper I had to lean in to hear. I'm lost again. That word, again, hit me wrong. I didn't ask for clarification at first. I thought maybe the child meant they'd been lost before. But something about the tone, the way they said it like they were repeating a memory, not describing it. Okay, I said, try and steady my voice. That's okay. We're gonna find you. Can you tell me how old you are? I think I'm 7. You think? Uh-huh. I muted my mic for a second and whispered to Janet. Any luck? She shook her head. It's weird, she said. The number doesn't exist. It's not even showing up in the system. I ran a reverse trace. It says disconnected since 1998. I felt my pulse spike. You're joking. She turned her monitor toward me. There it was. Disconnected number. Deactivated March 4th, 1998. I unmuted the mic. My mouth suddenly dry. Hey, are you still there? Yes. Okay, you're doing great. Can you tell me what happened before you got lost? The child sniffled softly. We were driving. Mommy said we were going home. But then the car stopped. She said she was tired and told me to stay in my seat. But she wasn't moving. I waited a long time. Then I went to find help. I exchanged another look with Janet. My throat felt tight. Do you remember what kind of car it was? There was a faint sound, something metallic scraping in the background. Then the voice said, it was blue, but it's all broken now. What do you mean, broken? No answer, just faint static. Then, suddenly, the sound of breathing, fast, panicked. She's coming. I sat up straighter. Who's coming? She's looking for me. I have to hide. Wait, listen to me. Don't hang up, okay? Stay on the line. The sound of footsteps, crunching leaves, the soft rustle of fabric, then the whisper again, right against the receiver. She's not Mommy anymore. My stomach turned to ice. What do you mean she's not? A click. The line went dead. I stared at the console, frozen. The screen still showed nothing. No number, no trace, no coordinates. Just blank space. Janet cursed under her breath. What the hell was that? I redialed the last call. It didn't go through. It wasn't even an option. The system showed nothing to redial. Like it never happened. We sent a report to dispatch anyway, describing the call, logging the words as best we could remember. The official policy is, if it's a hoax, it's a hoax. But neither of us believed it was. Not really. Around 3 a.m., I went to the break room to get some air. My hands were shaking. I sat there, staring at the vending machine lights, hearing the echo of that little voice in my head. I'm lost again. It replayed over and over, until I couldn't tell if I was remembering it right. When my shift ended, I couldn't sleep. I went home, made coffee, and kept thinking about 1998. Why that year? What happened then? I pulled up the old public record system, something we use for cold case references. I typed in missing child and Anna, set the date range to 1998. One case came up. Anna Reynolds, age 29, deceased, car accident, March 4th, 1998. Her daughter, Emily Reynolds, age 7, was missing, presumed dead. They never found her body. I stared at the photo for a long time. A woman with brown hair, soft smile. Beside her, a little girl holding a stuffed bear. The report said the car crashed off an old logging road about 15 miles outside of town. Police assumed the girl wandered off, but after weeks of searching, they closed the case. I should have closed my laptop right then, but I didn't. I found the address in the report and decided to drive out there that weekend. I told myself it was curiosity, closure, something to make sense of what I'd heard. The road was narrow, cracked, lined with dead trees. The further I drove, the quieter it got. No birds, no wind, just the hum of my tires. Then I saw it. What was left of the car, half buried under vines and dirt, rusted blue paint barely visible through the decay. I pulled over. My chest felt tight. The air was heavy, damp with that smell of rain and soil. When I stepped closer, I saw the license plate. It matched the one from the 1998 report. Inside the car, the seats were shredded. The steering wheel was melted from time and weather. But on the passenger seat, something caught my eye. A child stuffed bear, faded, torn at one ear. I picked it up gently, and then my phone rang. The sound made me jump. I looked down at the screen. Unknown caller. My mouth went dry. I answered, slowly. Hello. For a moment, silence. Then that same small voice. I found you. The line went dead again. And somewhere behind me in the stillness of the woods, I swear I heard the faint crunch of leaves, like small footsteps, getting closer. It's been 3 weeks since the unlisted call. 3 weeks since I heard that child whisper through a line that shouldn't exist. The report was filed. The case was marked as inconclusive. And I was told very clearly to let it go. But I couldn't. Every night since, I've stayed late after my shift ends. I tell myself it's to finish reports or double-check dispatch logs. But that's a lie. I stay because I'm waiting. Waiting for the phone to ring again. The storm started around midnight. Thunder rolled across the sky like something alive, shaking the windows. The lights flickered in that ugly green hue they get when the generator struggles. Storm nights are the worst for calls. Power lines down, car crashes, panicked people seeing shadows move in the dark. But that night, nothing. Just static in the air, heavy and waiting. At 12:47, the first ring came. No ID, no number, just blank space again. I froze for a second. Janet was off that night. The room was empty except for me and the hum of the storm outside. My hands were shaking as I answered. 911, what's your emergency? Nothing. Then faint breathing. And a voice, soft, young, trembling. Is this the lady who helps people? My heart stuttered. Yes, it is. Can you tell me your name? Another silence. Then the voice said, my name's Dylan. I glanced at the console. Still no number. Still nothing to trace. Hi, Dylan. What's going on? Are you hurt? He sniffled. No, but my mom's crying. She says I shouldn't talk to strangers, but I'm cold. I swallowed. Okay, where are you right now? Can you see any lights? No, just water. It's everywhere. I can't find the floor. The hairs on my arms stood straight. Water? Dylan, are you near a river or a lake? I was in the car, he said, voice shaking. Mom was driving fast. Then there was this big splash. I think she's sleeping now. I tried to wake her up, but she won't move. My throat tightened. Dylan, what's your last name? Before he could answer, a crack of thunder exploded through the line. The sound distorted everything, his breathing, his words, until it all blended into static. Then silence. The line was dead. I just sat there, staring at the receiver, my heart pounding. For a moment, I didn't move. Then I searched the name. Dylan, car crash, water. There it was. Dylan Carter, age 8, drowned in a flash flood on September 12, 2004. No survivors. That was 21 years ago. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even go home. I stayed in that chair, staring at the call log that didn't exist. The next morning, when the other operators came in, I told them what happened. Most of them just looked at me like I'd lost it. One of them, Tom, laughed and said, maybe it was a prank line. But the chief called me into his office later that day. He shut the door, folded his arms, and asked if I was feeling okay. I told him everything. The voice, the no-number calls, the missing kids. He leaned back in his chair and said, you've been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe take a few days off. He didn't believe me. None of them did. That night, I stayed home. The storm came back, heavy this time. Wind howling. Rain slamming against the windows. And even though I wasn't at work, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being listened to. At 1:12 a.m., my personal phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long time before answering. Hello. The line hissed softly. Then, just like before, a child's voice. Is this the lady from before? My blood ran cold. Who is this? I'm lost. she said. "I can't find my dad." "Where are you?" I whispered. "I was in the woods. We were camping, but the fire went out. He went to get more wood, but he never came back." I grabbed a pen and wrote everything down. "Okay, what's your name?" "Lila." "How old are you, Lila?" 6. I felt tears sting my eyes. "Can you tell me what state you're in? A town name? Anything." There was a long pause. Then she said softly, "I don't know. It's cold here, and the trees are whispering." I froze. "What do you mean, whispering? They're saying my name." The line went dead. I checked the call log. Nothing. No record. No trace. I didn't even bother searching that night. I already knew what I'd find. The next morning, I looked up Lila Missing Child Woods. Lila Moore, age 6, disappeared during a camping trip with her father in 2011. The father's body was found 3 days later. The girl's body was never recovered. I think that's when the fear stopped being just fear. It became obsession. Every storm after that, the calls came again. Different voices, different names. Sometimes I'd hear only whispers. "Help me. It's dark here. I can't find Mommy." Other times, full conversations, broken, fading, desperate. Each one matched a real missing child case. Every single one. I stopped telling my co-workers after the 3rd time. They couldn't hear them. Even when I put the call on speaker, they said all they heard was static. But I could hear them clearly, like they were right there. The worst part wasn't the calls themselves. It was what started happening after. I began hearing those same voices when the phones weren't even ringing. Faint through the walls, through the vents, through the rain. I'd wake up at night to my house phone flashing, no caller ID. Sometimes I'd answer and there'd be silence, just the sound of wind, like someone breathing too close to the receiver. Other times, I'd hear laughter, childish, light, wrong. The last storm was the worst. It was 2 nights ago. The wind was screaming outside, lightning flashing white through windows. The phones in the call room were dead, system down from the storm. But then mine rang, my personal one. I knew before I even looked. I answered anyway. This time, there were many voices, layered, overlapping, children whispering all at once, their words tangled and urgent. "It's raining again. She can hear us. Help us find home." "She's here too?" I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, my heart pounding. "Who's here? What do you mean?" The whispers grew louder, twisting together until one voice rose above the rest. A girl's voice. Familiar. "I'm lost again." Emily. It was her. The first one. My hand started shaking. So bad, I nearly dropped the phone. "Emily, what do you want?" I whispered. Her voice was soft, broken. "You didn't help me." I tried. "You left me there." "I didn't." She interrupted, her tone changing, deeper somehow, hollow. "They're all still lost because of you." "What are you talking about?" "You keep answering. You keep listening. That's how we find you." Lightning flashed outside, and for a split second, I saw something reflected in the glass across from me. Shapes. Small, pale shapes standing behind my chair. I spun around. No one was there. The call cut to static. Then silence. But I could feel it. Something in the room with me. The air was heavy, charged, almost humming. I stood up, breathing hard, trying to convince myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, anything rational. That's when every phone in the call center started ringing at once. All of them. Every line flashing. No caller IDs. No traceable numbers. Just ringing over and over, echoing through the room. I walked slowly toward the nearest console, my hands trembling, and picked up one of the receivers. 100 voices whispered through it. Some crying, some laughing, some calling my name. And then one clear voice, low and hollow. "She's calling too." I couldn't breathe. Ooh. Static crackled, and then, through the noise, "Your mother." The line went dead. I dropped the receiver. It hit the floor, still buzzing with faint static. My mom's been gone for 12 years. I buried her myself. I don't know if the calls are real anymore. I don't know if I'm real. Every storm night since then, I unplug every phone in the house. Everyone. But somehow, they still ring. And every time I hear that whisper on the other end, I swear the thunder sounds like children laughing. I don't remember the last time I slept through a storm. Every time the thunder starts, I sit up in bed, waiting for the ringing. It's been months now. Months since the first call. Months since the voices. And every time it rains, I hear them again, softer now, but still there, like echoes that never fade. My co-workers stopped asking about me. They think I'm burned out, maybe losing it. And maybe I am. But last night was different. The storm started before sunset. Thick, dark clouds rolling over the city like bruises in the sky. The air was heavy, charged, like it knew something was about to happen. I shouldn't have gone in that night, but I couldn't stay home. The house feels too empty now, too loud with silence. When I walked into the dispatch room, the lights were already flickering. The storm had knocked out half the grid, and we were running on backup power. It was just me and Tom that shift. He gave me this awkward smile, the kind people give when they don't know if they should say hi or are you okay. I just nodded and sat down at my desk. Everything felt off. The static in my headset was louder than usual, whispering faintly even when no one was calling. By midnight, Tom had gone out for coffee. I was alone. The rain pounded against the windows, so hard it sounded like static made real. And then it happened. Every monitor flickered at once, then went black. Only my console stayed on, its small green light blinking like a heartbeat. I leaned closer, and then the line rang. No number, no ID, just the same empty signal I'd seen a dozen times before. My breath caught. I answered, 911, what's your emergency? There was no voice this time, just a soft, low hum, like the sound you get when a radio isn't tuned right. And underneath it, breathing, slow, uneven, like someone trying not to be heard. I swallowed. Who is this? No response. The hum grew louder, a strange rhythm to it, like heartbeats wrapped in static. I tried tracing the call manually. The system struggled, glitching in and out, data lines flickering across the screen. Then finally, something appeared. Tracing signal. The progress bar crawled across the display, each percent taking longer than the last. I stared at it, my pulse matching the hum in my ears. Signal source located. My eyes scanned the coordinates, then stopped. The trace didn't lead to a phone. It didn't lead to a tower. It didn't lead anywhere. It read, origin, active device, dispatch operator 04/headset mic for a second. I thought it was a glitch that I unplugged the cord, checked the input, ran the test again. Same result. The call was coming from me. I pulled the headset off and stared at it like it was alive. The light on the side was blinking rapidly, faster than it ever had before. Then from the speakers, I heard my own voice, soft, distorted, whispering back at me. Is this the lady who helps people? My stomach dropped. It was the first voice, the first words. Emily's call, but it wasn't a recording. It was my own voice, repeating her words in my tone. I froze as it continued. I'm lost again. The sound grew warped, like someone stretching a memory until it breaks. My hand shook as I turned the volume down, but it kept playing, getting louder, overlapping, the voices bleeding together. Dylan's voice, Lila's, dozens of others, all speaking through me. Their cries echoed off the walls, overlapping in a desperate chorus. Help me. Can't find her. It's dark here. You didn't help us. The console lights flickered red, alarms flashing across the screen. Incoming transmission, priority level. Unclassified, I hit accept. And everything went quiet. Then a single voice came through, soft, calm, familiar. You found us. I tried to speak, but my throat wouldn't work. The voice continued. You kept listening. That's how we found you. Static swelled behind the words, almost sounding like laughter that I whispered. What do you want from me? The voice answered. We don't want anything. We just want to go home. I blinked back tears. I don't know how to help you. I tried. You did, the voice said gently. You answered. And then one by one, I heard them again, each voice from every storm, all whispering together, overlapping like the waves of the sea. Thank you. We can go now. She's waiting for you too. Lightning flashed outside, blinding white light spilling across the room. For a split second, I saw something through the reflection in the glass. A line of children standing behind me, soaked, pale, watching quietly. And at the very end of the line, my mother. Her face was calm, her eyes wet with rain, or maybe tears. The light flickered again. When it came back, they were gone. The headset light turned solid green, then off, and the line went dead. I sat there in the dark, the storm raging outside, the room silent except for the sound of rain on glass. Tom came back around to me. He found me sitting there, still holding the dead headset. He asked what happened, but I couldn't explain. The system logs were empty, no traces, no recording, and no proof I'd ever received a call. Just one note in console history. Final transmission complete. He said I looked pale, so I should go home, so I did. The rain followed me the whole way. Even after I got inside, I could still hear it. But it didn't sound like rain anymore. It sounded like voices. Hundreds of them whispering beneath the thunder. Some crying, some laughing softly. And through it all, one voice clearer than the rest, my mother. She said, "It's okay. You can rest now." I closed my eyes, and for the first time in months, the ringing stopped. But as I sit here now writing this, I can still hear it faintly, the soft hum, like the beginning of another call. The storm hasn't stopped in 3 days, and sometimes when the thunder rolls just right, I swear I can hear a child's voice whisper, "I'm lost again." Then silence, the line goes dead, and the rain keeps falling.